I'm going through the white light into the afterlife. My life is flashing before me. It was filled with video game news from E3 2019. Oh, wait. The Reaper is just checking DKVine.com on his smartphone.
Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell, and we got a full room tonight.
One menagerie.
Why don't we go down the table this way and introduce ourselves?
Hi, I'm Mitchell Farley Wolfe, 24 Libra.
Hey, I'm good. I'm Jeff, 24 male, Michigan.
Wrong. You're 25.
Wait, dude, I'm so close to 26.
Wait.
Why did I say 24?
Wait, he gave his astrological
No, but
sign.
I did ASL because that's what we all do. Age,
Alright,
sex,
well,
location.
let me redo me then.
Hey, I'm Jeff. I'm the one that sounds like this.
Alright. I'm Hyle. I'm 24.
Yeah.
And I'm a Sagittarius or a Scorpio, depending on which horoscope you look at, because I was born on November 22nd, so I never know who I am.
Cameron,
24.
24.
Good show.
Scorpio, I think.
For the record, I'm a Virgo, the sexiest of the signs.
I'm like almost a Scorpio, but I'm actually an Xbox Scarlet, which we can talk a little bit more about.
We would. Too bad I can't
Great.
reach my show notes over
Really?
there.
A spoiler
Oh
warning.
yeah, that's why we need it. Show notes.
No, we'll figure it out.
No, I can pull it up on Google Drive. It's fine.
We'll make
It's
them
fine.
wait.
So we're trying an experiment on this episode. We are streaming for our patrons at the $5 and up tier. We're also recording us for YouTube. I don't know if any of this is going to work. If there is no YouTube video for this, it did not. So apologies. So there's 4 men in the DK Vine Love Shack here in lovely Los Angeles.
Baby Love Shack.
Yeah. And we have had a day. We are all exhausted. We are hyped up. I am hyped up on these lovely caffeine pills and bananas, which I can't get these guys to
We just
partake
doing
in.
regular drugs.
Yeah. I'm not checking my phone, by the way. I'm trying to pull up our show notes because we've got our computer over there, and this is not our usual setup. We've got a snail there. I don't understand why a snail is there.
Yeah, but his name is DeMarco.
His name is His name is DeMarco, and he's a great little turquoise snail. This room has a ton of turquoise things in it. We thought it was going to be a big red room, which is why it's called the Love Shack, but it's more of just a turquoise room. So
now we will get plenty of loving in here, so we will. It will be a Love Shack before we end. Okay. So our show notes are loaded. Here we go. All right, there we go. All right.
You put some depth into those.
yeah.
Oh wait, these are like a long time ago. Refresh. Okay.
We could just redo an old episode.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
could.
You want to do
Hey,
bears again?
E3 2018. What happened?
E3 2018 was.
Was it? We don't know.
Hmm.
Let us know in the chat what episode you want us to do today.
All right, you know what? We're gonna do these sans notes. We can do it, whatever. So, yeah, this is the E3 2019 Microsoft episode. Thought we'd have a lot to talk about, and I guess we do, but just not what we thought we'd be talking about. By the way, people have called me out on social media. I've been drinking Strongbow hard cider instead of the usual Angry Orchard. So I apologize. I am a fraud. The reason behind that is I kind of like the taste of this better.
Dude, so much sponsorship money you're just pissing away there.
Yeah, because it's clearly worked out for me.
Red Crested Reigle wanted to point out that we missed an opportunity here, Kyle, by not recording this in bed together.
Well,
What do you guys think we're using as a bed?
I can.
This is the bed.
I can take off an article of clothing like every 15
That's
minutes
not what
or
they
so.
said.
That's better, but it's not.
Well, I mean,
I've seen so many Hyle dongs this week.
Yeah, I
and
know.
it's
I'm
been
just
like
like-
a day.
Can we not?
can we not? Okay. All right, that's fine. All right, we got to save it for the Nintendo episode. I understand.
So Microsoft opened today by
A countdown.
oh yeah,
There was a
nice
countdown.
little
Well, actually, it opened by us arriving and standing in line.
The whole one.
Yeah.
Ooh.
First we had to walk.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we walked. We had an argument about how to get there. We could drive.
Some of us are allergic to scooters. Other ones only like scooters. So it's just this whole.
I wanted to get everyone to ride the electric scooters called Birds that have taken over Los Angeles in a really invasive way, which is not good
birds
for the
often
city,
do.
but for us people that don't live here all the time, that need to travel a very short distance from our hotel room to the press conference, back and forth a few days in this week, I think they're kind of a godsend, except for the fact that I can't get anyone to do it, so it just doesn't happen.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem, Mitchell, and we will have to just agree to disagree. I don't want this to drive a wedge between our friendship. The thing about these bird scooters that people just leave about like the trash that they are is that you have to find them. And
they have GPS and you can see.
yeah, okay, but that means you're walking for quite a bit. And we saw plenty of
Quite a bit.
limes. Where were they? Limes. We saw plenty of
We
the
saw
lift
Lime
ones.
Lift, and the other one was, I think it was just speed or something.
But the ones you see in the GPS on the map, in the
Yeah,
app,
but you still have
will
to
for
walk to
sure
them.
be
You still have to
birds.
walk to them. So
It's
basically,
shorter
So
than
if
the
you look at a
next
map
one.
and it says there's a bird over here and you follow it,
Yeah.
how do you know you're not going to walk right into a den of like homeless murderers?
This cannot have been in the show notes.
it wasn't.
It was
No,
actually point
this
one,
is what
2, and
happens when
3.
we have the show notes way over there on the counter. We just go off track.
I feel like this is actually going out of control. This is a wild and reckless ride.
And
And then there was a countdown. And
well,
they were like 10,
we're losing the bird sponsorship money along with Angry Orchard. So yeah, we walked. We eventually walked because we're not that far from LA Live this year. We are actually, the Love Shack is actually really nice. It's probably the best
Baby Love Shack.
the best lodging we've had.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely been a step up every year we've stayed out here.
This is my first one, and so I think it's a huge step up.
There are no cockroaches. That's a plus.
But there's a lot of cock.
Yes, but I did not. Okay, so like I don't fear waking up with a cockroach in my mouth. Don't add to that. And it's a good feeling, and I feel like I'm productive. I feel like I'm not afraid of bugs or pubic hair, and it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to be at E3 and not have to worry about those two very particular things. So we walked because it was only like 25 minutes to walk. And,
It's 26, yeah.
And if you if you do it like before midday, it's not a bad experience.
No, yeah, it was pretty good. Coming back was kind of.
Well, can we talk about the snowmat attack we had?
Yeah.
Walking there.
We can talk about
Just
it.
Oh,
as a
yeah.
Viking, a real life
So many
Viking.
things happened today. I forgot, but you're
The
right.
snowmat attack, right? So we
Yeah.
were walking to LA Live, which is where the Microsoft Theater and the convention center are, along with the Staples Center. And we heard somebody. What was the exact song he was singing?
La 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 fucking la.
Yeah.
La la la! Like that.
Yeah.
So he was right. It was a man riding a bicycle with
the fucking there was not me in.
No,
He
It was-
did.
it
He
was-
did say
did.
that.
I thought it was
He
fuck
used
the
the
law
real F
is
word.
what it was, right?
La 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 la.
I mean,
la,
if you just say
fucking la.
la over and over again in a song, I assume you're just going like la la la. But he might have been talking about.
And he was on
The
a
written
bicycle, and he circled us like
Yeah.
a bird of prey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was shirtless and wearing only a Viking helmet.
Well, not a real Viking helmet. It's a
Halloween store
fictional Viking
Viking
helmet with the
helmet.
horns,
But
like
it
like
was
the
a real
top sword
helmet.
in Tropical Freeze.
Well, you could argue that there's actually no such thing as a real Viking helmet because they didn't really wear those.
You could argue that anyone who can wear it, then it's no longer fictional. It's on it. It was actually on his head.
But yeah, he was riding a
Okay.
bike and he was circling
Yeah,
us.
sure.
He was circling us as we were trying to walk. And at first it was charming and delightful, and I said, I'm all right with this. And then it
Yeah.
became a little unsettling when he wouldn't go away.
He only followed us for like most of the way.
Yeah.
But it's Los Angeles. You come to expect Vikings harassing you on
I'm
bicycles.
quickly coming to expect that. This is my first time in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So.
Mhm.
So anyway, we got to the convention center, and we being these three, we had all got into the Xbox briefing on general admission passes. Mitchell had a media pass, and
It was M-rated.
right. So we had to split up in the lines. So Mitchell's line was on the sidewalk and in the shade, and he got in like super quick.
Yeah, they gave him back rubs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And we were standing on black asphalt, unprotected under the sun for about 2 hours in a non-moving line that with lots of people huddled together with body heat. And
Yeah. They were like sharing memes and stuff. I couldn't handle it.
yeah, no, it was awful. It was a nightmare, and like the sweat was pooling down our legs and our buttocks, and yeah, it's
What else? Where else, Cameron? Legs, buttocks, back,
Toesies.
back,
yeah,
back too. Yeah,
Back.
yeah. So
Eyes and ears and mouth and nose.
yeah, that too.
and
Head,
what was
shoulders, knees, and toes.
what was really irritating though is then occasionally we couldn't see because we were like shoved against the fence, but we would hear everybody in front start screaming like "woo!" and we were like, "Oh, is the line moving? Were we going inside?" No. It was what was it?
It's just like some cameramen once in a while they'd come out, kind of scan the crowd with a camera, and everyone was like, "Woo!"
Well, no, the cameraman would specifically ask the people to say Xbox.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, Xbox.
And
that was it.
Was
Just
it
a
you,
few
Cameron,
times.
or was it Jeff that had the very accurate point that this is actually how you break people down?
This
in a
is
cult?
this is how you form
Super
a
Karen.
cult. Is that you?
Yeah.
You like weaken them like in this like debilitating heat.
The sweat lodge.
Yeah.
And then get them to say a catchy chant over and over again.
And people were doing this with their. You're not going to see this on audio,
Yeah, no.
But
they're doing this. They're doing this.
which
Yeah.
is so culty.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a fun one for the podcast listeners who don't have the video feed. Don't explain it.
No, don't explain
No.
it. No,
They were doing
absolutely
this
not.
though.
You have to listen to this again on YouTube.
It's frankly going to be better if left to your imagination.
Yeah, they just kept doing this.
Yeah. Oh, Jeff, that's so obscene.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, and then Mitchell like called us and like, "Hey, you guys in yet?" It's like, nope, we're general admission. They don't care about us, and everybody here is brainwashed, so they're just going to accept whatever punishment is dealt out. And Sony's not here, so it's not like anybody can defect.
I don't understand how the press briefing can have general admission.
Well,
Because like everyone was invited at some level.
we were all
You can't buy
invited.
your
We
way
were all
into the press
invited,
briefing.
either your media or you're invited by industry contacts.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why it's split up the way it is. But I'm not complaining. I wish they would have a tent or umbrellas. Or...
Yeah, I was speaking with, I met this very nice woman by the name of Alex. She works in so now you can probably dox her. But I told her...
Don't do that.
Please don't.
In case, I mean, like, don't, but like, it's possible, right?
Don't
Yeah.
be terrible.
But she's
please.
very nice. It would
But
be
she's
aw-
very nice.
She's very nice. Don't do it. I mean, you could, but like, don't. Why would you? She was really nice.
What'd she have to say?
She had to say, which was a response to my question of, do you think they're gonna put out umbrellas? And she's like,
You did that conversation out of order.
Well, you asked it. The end of it.
Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were not umbrellas. The answer to her was
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so they really... That was the same problem that we had last year.
But
I can't
eventually
imagine-
they brought out umbrellas last year.
I don't remember that in any capacity.
We were split up
other
again
than,
last
like,
year, though,
people
too.
having individual umbrellas.
They were handing them out. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if you got
I
them.
mean, it did seem
That's
like
great.
I mean, I get that it's a big event. You got a lot of coordinating to do, but also I did feel like there was a little bit of a potential health risk.
Yeah.
Don't dox Alex.
We're
Can
moving
we
on
move
from
on
that.
from that?
Why would you do it?
Why would you attribute
put
all
the
of this
idea
to
in their
one
heads.
person?
She's a great person. She was really nice.
A great.
She might have been Persian. That's
yeah,
okay.
I don't know. No reason to dox a person.
Okay. You can see the heat clearly got... Well, actually, Mitchell was the only one who was not in the heat for very long, so I don't know what his excuse
Him and Alex were doing coke in the bathroom or something. I don't even... The media get a lot of preferential treatment. They're just hooked right up.
The perils of having 4 people on these things. So, eventually we all got in. This is just a lot of complaining. It's not complaining, it's context. Because
and then there was a countdown.
I feel like what we can provide for you at home is you get to see the bits you don't see streamed on everywhere that streams these things. Because you just see the indoor bits with Phil Spencer and Keanu Reeves, and you're like, that looks awesome. And there's a lot of toil and strife. That
this
goes
is
into
context
attending
for our mental states going in the building. I would say, like, this wasn't like a game breaker, but it explains like maybe why we weren't like all there when we got in our seats.
Yeah, your basic. Maybe they do it to wear you down, so you're more receptive to what you see. It's again like cult brainwashing.
Yeah, we well, I was trying to save seats for y'all, and
Nice y'all.
yeah, it was on purpose. And when I did it, there were a number of people that kept asking about it, and I was very diligent in saving the seats. But one guy came up and he said, "Are you really saving all these seats?" And I go, "Up to that."
All these meaning
last
3.
empty one, yeah. Just these. It's well, it was 7 because it was mine, and then like also Alex. I was sitting with Alex again. Don't. Anyway, he called me rinse, and he's like, "You're saving all these seats for real? It's so fucking rinse." And then he walked away in a storm of anger, and I'm like, I'm now going to use that word for a lot of things. It's a new word to me.
I don't know
I've
what
never
that word
heard it.
means besides being clean, getting something clean.
It's not rinsed, you know. It was just RINSE. I assume.
It still means to wash something.
So it's
wet
more like
something.
you drizzle it with water after you've washed it.
I'd say like the heat getting to our brains is also how we ended up in like trains of thought like this and the like cult conversation. We needed things to talk about for like the 45 minutes or more that we were standing like in that line.
Yeah, we
like,
went to some
like,
weird places out there in the heat, and
I really wanted a Squirtle to be real. Squirtle's a Pokemon.
you kept talking about
I
Squirtles.
thought if a Squirtle was real, I would let him squirt me, and because I was real hot, and you know
But
he's refreshing.
As I pointed out, anybody there could
It's
squirt
so
you.
refreshing.
Anybody in that crowd could have
I
squirted you.
needed
at
to be
any moment.
rinsed, and I said, I think maybe Hyle might have been the first to say how eager you would be to suck Phil Spencer's dick if it got us in faster. You were pretty eager on that. You thought, you know, why not? And I was like, yeah, me
Is that
too.
practice? What is that?
Yeah, the audio only listeners didn't get that one either.
We got inside.
This is such an unfiltered episode.
Do you? Yeah, you got inside. Got to your seats.
Then they had a countdown.
We sat down. We were all together, and it was nice to be in air conditioning. And then there's the countdown, and everybody was cheering, woo! And
You know, the countdown started at 10, which is the right number. Bethesda's countdown started at 30.
Too many.
Too many. The crowd chanted every number, and that was a long time.
Yeah.
They started at 10, and each one was a screen or a slide on the slideshow that was drawn out like a scene.
They
And
were
the number
vaguely
9,
reminiscent of games associated with the Xbox brand, and
number 9 was a pirate or pretty clearly a Sea of Thieves themed slide of the number 9 with like some skulls on the beach
and
with,
barrels,
barrels.
or a barrel.
And long story short, that was Rare's only appearance.
We were so excited at that beginning, the number 9 out of the 10-second countdown.
So let's not go through the whole thing in order because I cannot remember the order. Let's go through what is most important to the Kongversation audience. And then we'll talk about the entire thing or whatever we want to talk about. But
The answer is literally just Battletoads, right?
well, hold on. As my show notes would say, well, that I can't
They would
reach.
say, hold on.
Hold on, Mitch.
Yeah,
Now-
well, yeah, my part was written into.
The expectation, I think, for all of us, as we discussed on our preview episode a couple of days ago, was that we would probably see low-key minor Sea of Thieves content, nothing huge. You said maybe we'll get a clue as to the next big update, but that would be a ways away.
Yeah,
And-
or even like not a big update. Just like here's like a small section of the roadmap for the immediate future.
Yeah.
Or even if it was just a promotional event just for E3. Like, by the way, an update this week on Wednesday where you can get a cool new hat, but it's only this week.
Yeah.
You know, one of those type.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be kind of resentful of that just because I'm nowhere near my Xbox.
Well, they never do anything for just a week, actually.
Yeah.
Everything is usually like a
Yeah.
month in Sea of Thieves, so.
Yeah, but we thought that, and we thought, well, there's a good chance that we will see a new game that Rare's been working on. And there were a couple of reasons we felt that way, but I think one of the reasons is that we know there are several Rare people out here on the trip. I mean, a large stable of Rare people, and not all of the Rare people are people who have been associated with Sea of Thieves. And we thought, well, this clues us in that there could be another project that they've been working on that they're ready to show off. And we didn't get any of that. We didn't get that. We didn't get any Sea of Thieves. We got Sea of Thieves appeared in the montage at the end.
Anytime they needed something that advertised the existing Xbox library, we got Sea of Thieves footage in there somewhere.
From past trailers.
And I mean,
And
B-roll
in one
footage.
weird place, I think we'll talk about.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Well, this is like the modern equivalent of Master Chief's helmet appearing in everything, even if there wasn't a Halo game.
Right.
Like, Sea of
But
Thieves is
Nintendo
now at that
does
level.
The good thing to take from this is it's, again, evidence of just how giant Sea of Thieves is for Xbox as a brand right now.
Yeah, even outside the Microsoft Theater and the big billboard, there was Lassetti from off of the
Right.
comic and now the arena.
Lara Croft, Master Chief, Batman, and Lassetti
Yeah, your
from Sea of
classic
Thieves. Those
Xbox.
the
icons.
Mount Rushmore of games.
Really, the Fab Four, yeah. So it was a little disconcerting, and I think, I know, Mitchell, you were at the end, so I didn't interact much with you, but I looked over at Jeff, who was actually to this side of me, this side being my left, and Cameron
We're
was
kind of
on
in
my
a
left.
reversal of
Yeah.
what we were.
Well, Mitchell's where he's always at, but we kept looking at each other because when they got to Project Scarlet and Halo Infinite, we kept looking at each other like, huh,
Yeah.
they skipped over something.
They forgot.
Yeah. Do you think we should run up on stage and whisper into Phil's ear, hey, you need to go back and forgot to talk about this?
He's got his ear pads in. What are those called?
Earpads.
AirPods?
He's got his ear pads in. He can't hear us.
I mean, and they could just edit that bit out and then, go back and it'd be fine. It'd be fine. We'll fix it in post. But, it was weird because we thought for sure, given all the clues we had, and just for the record, for anybody listening to this who stumbled in, there was never a chance it was going to be a Banjo game. And I know that sounds harsh, but there was never a chance it was going to be a Banjo game, and you need to understand that. So we're not saying, where was the Banjo game? Because that was a lot of fan-generated, I don't want to say nonsense because that sounds mean, but it was self-delusion.
No, the fans started it and then got themselves worked up over a thing they invented.
But then some media outlets fed into it too.
Well, yeah, but they always do. Yeah,
I know.
That's how the rumor mill works.
But IGN fed into it, and I'm just
yeah, they always do.
Banjo wasn't going to happen, at least not from Rare, and Rare was the one that we thought did have another game.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem to have one to show.
I just didn't expect it to happen this year regardless because they just got worked on Sea of Thieves. The timetable doesn't line up to me.
No, you don't just say, okay, we're doing a Banjo game, let's whip it out. That's not the way these things work. But we thought there was going to be a new Rare game. We thought for sure there was going to be a new Rare game.
We were really sure about it.
I mean, that was
Personally,
a short
I would
bet.
say I was real sure about it. I felt for sure.
I can glare at you in person. That's really great.
Just to
audience is seeing
clarify,
the looks you're
we had
usually
strong
giving
kind of thought there would be one.
Yeah, I agree with Cameron.
So I'm still going to try to figure out what's going on with that. So this story is not over, but it kind of took to not use the Sea of Thieves analogy, but it kind of took the wind out of our sails a bit walking out because we were confused, and it's not like it was a bad briefing, all things considered.
It was a good briefing. Like, if you're not like covering the very narrow
I'll
sort
put
of
it this
content
way.
we do.
There was a lot shown in that briefing that was exciting for the duration of the trailer, but because it's outside of some of our interests, and it's not, we have pretty narrow interests, games by or about.
I mean, it's even things I was interested in. It's just that's not our purview.
We're looking for these specific type of games that as soon as that briefing is over, we're going to analyze that trailer to death. We're going to go talk about it for weeks and months. And there was nothing like that. So it was a really entertaining, great show with a lot of big games. Just like it was exciting for the duration of the show. And as soon as it was over, we were like, oh, well, now what? There's nothing for us to obsess over. Although there was a little bit.
We'll talk about that. But so right now, the big mystery of Rare's presence, what they're doing here, besides just to do Sea of Thieves related events, like tomorrow there's a Mixer showdown.
The Arena Invitational, the first foray into competitive gaming scene for Sea of Thieves.
Which the three of us will be in the audience, so keep a lookout for that. But Mitchell, you're going to be.
He's number 4. We're a lot like a Battletoads game. There's only 3.
Yeah.
I'm the evil queen.
But
that's
not a bad role to have.
She's hot.
Yeah.
Or the bird, Professor.
As a scooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the mystery right now is what Rare is doing out here. What so many Rare folk are doing out here besides that. And what certain Rare folk are doing out here that aren't really related with Sea of Thieves. Like, are they on a mission from, or is it on Her Majesty's Secret Service, a mission, for the British government? We don't really know. But we're going to try to figure out in the most tactful way possible. And we'll get to the bottom of it. I don't really know.
Yeah. There were a lot of things in that conference that I was very excited about. But just because, I went into it thinking, I don't know what there's going to be, but there's at least a Rare game. And then coming out of it, it's like, oh, well, there was a lot of stuff, but there wasn't that Rare game. I was like, it definitely left me in a weird headspace to think about.
We were kind of in a funk, just going because we went.
Despite the fact that I loved what I saw from Cyberpunk and Psychonauts.
I would say I didn't feel despondent or disappointed. It was just kind of confusing.
Well, it was confused. Okay, so there were 2 angles to it. It was personal confusion and disappointment that we didn't see it. And it was also, how do I deal with the community right now? Because I'm sure there's angry people, and I'm sure there's a lot of just... And meanwhile, we're walking out in the hot sun, and we have, an hour of walking ahead of us, so I can't really, get on Twitter and be like...
Well, it's 26 minutes, but...
Well, no, between walking to get our badges and walking back, yeah.
I'll say this. I've seen a lot of commentary in the community or online about, wondering why Rare would even go out to E3 if they had nothing to show. And I want to make it real clear that briefing we just watched isn't all of E3.
No.
And just because Rare wasn't involved in that doesn't mean Rare isn't involved in this E3.
It's so funny for the people at home. I've noticed E3 pretty much lives and dies by the briefings and the directs and the press conferences, and it has nothing to do with actual E3, which is the show floor. The show floor.
Yeah,
show
E3 as advertised is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Right, E3 doesn't even begin.
And by Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, to most people, E3 is already done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, another third part of the show that is talked about less is something I got to do for the first time this year, which we can definitely talk about later, and I don't want to go into too much detail now, but was the Xbox Showcase, which was a much thinner, easier to get through version of the show floor for just a few people. I felt very included. It was nice. There was free beer. I sat in the Lego car. It was a good time. But
you broke the Lego car.
I no, I didn't break the Lego car. I spilled a little beer on the Lego car.
Yeah. For liability purposes, I didn't know if we were going to tell this story.
I kind of was led to believe you spilled kind of a lot of beer.
Well,
On the-
you know,
I heard
Lego
you
car.
soiled yourself in the Lego car,
if
Mitchell.
time is relative, the amount of beer is certainly also. But what I was trying to get to with the show floor or showcase thing is that Battletoads was there and Rare was showing it off. Delilah wasn't. Delilah
that's
was not
interesting.
there. So,
That's
like,
interesting,
So
yeah.
I've been
if
trying
you're
to
talking about
point that
why
out.
Rare would be there, like
And-
that's a job.
Well,
that
let's
they're doing.
segue then into Battletoads. I mean,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Dude, Jeff with the cool segues.
so Battletoads obviously is not a DK Vine franchise. It's not something we normally talk about, but Battletoads is a classic Rare IP. Like right before Donkey Kong Country kind of took over the identity of the studio, there was Battletoads, and
And you see a little bit of the DNA of DKC to come in Battletoads,
Yeah.
and like the character designs and stuff. It's like the
yeah.
it's the building blocks to it a little bit.
I think it's the earliest you can go where it still feels like that same kind of DNA. Obviously, there's small stuff like in every era, but like in Night Lore, it doesn't really feel like the same kind of thing that you would get in the N64
I mean,
era. But
It's
Battletoads does. Yeah.
yeah.
Greg Mails was involved in Battletoads, right?
Cat
So-
Bayless.
Kid Bayless.
Bayless,
You can see it in
yeah.
the character
And-
designs
and
going
if I'm-
forward.
Dave
you
Wise,
can correct me
yeah.
if I'm wrong, but the Kremling crew, as they are in
Yeah.
Donkey Kong Country, were invented. They were not. So
No.
you.
That's
so
one.
I
That's
was
like
wrong.
a common knowledge.
And I've been
thing.
Did
corrected.
Greg Mails say they
Like-
literally were on?
No,
invented
no,
for
they were
that.
invented
And right-
for what was the game, Johnny Blastoff or something? Some other game.
Oh, so it wasn't Battletoads.
It wasn't Battletoads.
I could have swore Greg Mails said that literally word for word.
They were
the
not. It
comments
was
were
not
invented for
Battletoads. It was another game, but not Battletoads. It's a common misconception that they were
Okay.
for Battletoads.
I'm thinking of a specific tweet, so I'll have to find it.
The
But
specific tweet says this.
I believe
okay,
it.
Okay,
I believe
okay.
Or the fans in the chat can go and
Anyway,
research
that's why
while-
K. Rool
while
will
they
never
listen.
be in Smash Brothers.
Search,
Right.
search Twitter for interactions between me and Greg Mails, and maybe if Twitter
It's
has
the
that
private DMs
functionality.
between me and Greg Mails that they
Yeah,
really
he's
click.
slid
Search
it.
Twitter for those
Slid it.
too. Whatever you find. I don't know. Look, it's not. Let's not dox Hyle. Okay. Let's not dox Hyle. Let's not look through all.
Wait,
this
he's in
footage.
a mindset right now, and that's fine. But we're gonna.
I can
gloss
stare
over
at the
it.
camera like Jim Halpert.
He's gymming it.
For real,
Mm.
this time. So, Battletoads. My first impressions.
Yeah.
As somebody who is not really a Battletoads guy, but I played my fair share of Battletoads. Weirdly, the game I played the most was Battletoads and Double Dragon. That was my biggest Battletoads experience. But Battletoads. This is our first real look. Besides, we got the teaser last year that didn't really show off anything. This was our first look. Again, it is being developed by the La Studios, but Rare does have a big hand in it. It's not like totally hands off.
Rare is co-developing it. I don't think they've described it that way, but that's literally what's happening. There are designers at Rare helping. With the
It's
game.
more hands-on than something like Big Reunion was. It's way more hands-on than Killer Instinct.
More than a supervisory capacity.
Yeah. So it is in many respects a Rare game. Not to take away from Delilah, but
It is a Delilah with Rare game.
So, Battletoads, I thought it looked fantastic. I was immediately impressed. I was in love with the art style because and this is something we've talked about quite a bit off air, so this is just going to seem like reheated garbage to all of you, but
Microwave those Battletoads.
yeah, so I thought the art style was perfect because it is an art style that is not just recreating the graphics, lazily recreating the graphics of the original NES, Super Nintendo, arcade games, Game Boy, whatever. It's actually doing something new, but in a way that celebrates the era in which Battletoads comes from, which is late 80s, early 90s. That general aesthetic and vibe. It's doing it in a modern graphical style, but one that kind of taps into that retro kind of kitschy
And the trailer presentation was along those lines too. Like
Yeah.
you saw a lot of heavy use of purple and like cyan and yellow, like
and just
very-
a kind of a Ninja
Gradient.
Turtle style attitude coming
Gradient,
through there.
word
but it
art.
still feels like a modern aesthetic that's just calling back to a specific era. It doesn't feel like
It was presented with a sort of 90s high octane to it, but it
Early
was
90s.
Yeah, early 90s.
it's not say like a recreation of like a 90s cartoon the way Cuphead is like going after 1920s.
It's not like this 8-bit sprites they could have done.
No,
It's not either of those. It's like a new modernized direction.
It is what
to
I
it.
would expect from something that Rare does have their hands in, and that they're not taking the easy way out.
It feels like exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, can I go into the thing I was most impressed with, and I was kind of hoping they would do this in the lead up, because we went for, I guess it's a year at this point, knowing Battletoads existed, but not knowing anything about what it would look like.
Yeah.
And my hope was that when they got the chance to revisit these characters, they would kind of diversify their designs a little bit more. Because I feel like you ran into a problem with Battletoads where Rash became the most prolific one because he was the one with the sunglasses.
Yeah.
And they have...
He has the most character, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just palette swaps of him, and he was the one with personality.
I mean, they have like little differences, but that was something you could describe in like a noun. Okay, glasses. Rash. Okay.
I kind of wish they went one step like even further than they ended up doing with this one and made Zitz just blue or something. Just like a complete.
He's like a bluish green.
Yeah,
but,
he's like teal.
but I
it's
guess
still
what I
kinda
was going
green.
at is they exaggerated the proportions, I think, a little bit more than they usually do, and they added a different apparel for the other two.
Yeah.
And I do feel like it diversifies them a bit more, and I really dig it.
One thing I really liked is, something that's present in all of the Battletoads games, but even more apparent when you get beyond the 8-bit game.
There's a Battletoads on the Game Boy. It's valid
Okay,
to say
so the
because-
arcade game is what I'm thinking of, but they all have this sort of animation style that's wacky, exaggerated limbs that grow in size, and eyeballs that pop out, and this game, with its art style, realizes that in a way that was they never had been capable of on those earlier hardware, and it just this very wacky cartoon physics to it that's I love it. It's an aesthetic thing, and I think it's totally in line with the Battletoads series, but it is like the full realization of that art style that you would have seen in like the arcade game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I see people complaining online. We've all seen it, that it's just the Cal art style.
I'm not going to dignify that with a response.
I think it's just like a couple people, because you're going to get that on any cartoon style. You
Yeah.
get a couple people that make that accusation.
I think the art style looks a lot different even than the very small amount of it that we saw last year, where it was just like the hand.
Yeah.
Or the hover bike. I think, didn't they show like a broken hover bike the year before?
In last year's thing, it made me think of like a kind of early 2000s Nickelodeon deal, like a Ed and Eddie. That's Cartoon Network, but is it?
I'm too old to
Ed,
know
and Eddie
anything.
is Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Amanda show last night, and I was barely.
Yeah, I mean,
cognizant
we're
of that.
pretty much
That's-
always talking about the
That's
Amanda
still
show.
like last century, so that's crazy to me. But
I'm an old man, Mitchell.
the Ed and Eddie style is just like really like squiggly and like kind of gross on purpose, and I felt like that would make a lot of sense too, because the Battletoads are very gross on purpose. You know,
They're named after skin.
right.
Right.
Skin ailments.
Which were all the rage in the early 90s.
Yeah,
We were all
all
trying to give
rash.
ourselves rashes, yeah.
So them going either not from that to something else, or maybe just the hand was a bad example of the style. I can't.
It's
tell.
more angular than I expected,
It is,
which
It's
I think
like all
works for it.
squanchy. It's kind of
It's squanchy.
Squanchy, people. Squanchy.
Yeah.
Squanchy.
Like I'd say,
It's
like
fine.
the contemporary thing that it reminds me the most, like if I had to pick out a single show currently on television, would be like the current incarnation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Nickelodeon, Rise of the TMNT, and that's appropriate for Battletoads because
Because
They give
Battletoads
us
are
erections.
always aping
Yeah.
the Teenage
Well,
Mutant
what
Ninja
don't?
Turtles. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's their history. Their history is always
Right. I mean, that's which is fine. I mean,
embrace it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. If we didn't like rare games that aped other things and did them better, we wouldn't like a lot of rare games.
Yeah. So I'm definitely more invested and interested in Battletoads. It's probably a game I will definitely buy day one when it comes out. It's just
or you can get it on Game Pass day one, which was a theme of this show.
Yes, it was. Which I'm not. I like to own my games. I don't like to just.
You know what? I do too. I never had considered Game Pass until they announced the Game Pass Ultimate.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised how much I cared about that as someone who doesn't want or had not previously wanted Game Pass. Like it was you get Game Pass and your Live Gold subscription and Game Pass for PC for like $14.99 a month, and you're already paying what you're paying for Live Gold. So
I'm like paying like $70 for Live Gold or whatever it costs.
it's some money. It's between $0 and $1 billion.
And you factor that against like being able to play a really good selection of games, like you could
Batman
feasibly
Arkham Knight.
like
Yeah, zing.
But just you could feasibly like just if you weren't like particularly interested in a title that didn't happen to be on Game Pass, you could buy an Xbox, buy Game Pass, never buy a single game,
Right.
and have a really solid library of games you will just never run out.
What I think is excellent about the concept of a service like Game Pass is how many games that you normally wouldn't buy because you're just not interested enough to bite the bullet. But now you can very just guilt-free give it a try and then maybe fall in love. And I think part of the sort of the narrative or the theme of their show was find your next favorite game or your new favorite game. And I kind of like that as a concept. It's just marketing, but it's a fun little story. Yeah. You know,
I like it. It's the thing. The problem with services in an E3 press conference is that they're probably the biggest deal out of everything that was talked about today. Game Pass Ultimate is the biggest deal out of not only Microsoft's whole show, but probably Bethesda's also. Like just everything that's happened so far at E3, it's going to impact people the most. And it still is just not as cool as any game.
Well, and
it's
also
it's
because
an uncool thing to
the
talk
crowd
about.
that's at E3 generally travels a pretty far distance to come to E3. And when you're like, oh, you can get it today, it's like, well, fuck you, I'm at E3. Like, tell me about stuff that's happening this autumn or next year.
I've always said it this way. It doesn't matter how cool the hardware is or we talk about maybe Google Stadia as a service, blah, blah, blah. All of that is not interesting to people if you don't have the games. And so it's always going to be games are going to be the cooler announcement.
So speaking of like experiences unique to the show floor, I noticed that Just Andre in the chat asked, why is Dark GLaDOS our episode image? Referring to the big black structure.
The telescope.
Do we want to go into that?
Yeah, so...
it's my nemesis.
So for all of you who just care about Rare, this concludes the Rare portion of our podcast until the end, where we will talk a little bit about Conker's Pocket Tales, which will be a theme on every episode this week.
We could talk a lot more about Battletoads.
We could, but I also think we're gonna... Well, you played it. You played it tonight.
I mean, I have more to say if we want to talk maybe...
But do we want to wait until we get to your little experiences with the Xbox Media Showcase?
Your little...
Yeah, then we can talk more about that.
Because we didn't experience that because we weren't invited this year.
Don't worry, they were little.
They were little,
They were small.
Insignificant.
Much like Evil
Cute.
Acorn to Conker's
Yeah, he had
birthday
some
party,
cute
we weren't
experiences.
invited.
So we'll talk about that before we conclude with some Conker's Pocket Tales memories. For its 20th anniversary, of course.
Dude, we were all 4 years old when it came out.
Yeah.
We're all 24.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
It's a callback.
Another annoyance, another hindrance of actually being at these things live is the visibility is not as good as when you're sitting at home.
That's partially my fault. We did sit right in front of a big old crane with a camera at the end.
The camera jib.
I mean, did you know? I don't think you knew.
No, because it was like an extendo crane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I was
And it
sitting
was
down, it was like
distended.
just
It was like,
down
for
here.
lack of a better word, docked before we sat down.
It
Like
was
I didn't
a
notice it
grower,
was there.
not a shower.
It was a major grower.
So basically, this giant camera jib or like camera on a boom was.
We called it a boom mic, but it's a camera.
Yeah.
It was
So
a
it's inaccurate.
telescoping camera mount that was mounting a camera.
It kept moving over us in a very, very disconcerting manner. And then it would move in front of the stage, blocking our view of the screen with the highest fidelity, meaning that we would basically have our view and our enthusiasm for whatever's being shown.
Well, what would happen?
I'm sorry, you go ahead, Cameron.
No, yeah. Well, I was still talking, Jeff.
I thought it was a good time to shut you up. I don't know.
I was gonna say, speaking of like when it would, the reason like they had screens on either side to the left and right for the instances for the benefit of the audience when they can't see the center screen.
Yeah.
But it blocking the center screen in particular was an issue, one for fidelity and two because like for picture or video opportunities, if you're in your seat, you start videotaping or taking pictures, and all of a sudden the boom just drops into the gobsmacks in the middle of the frame.
Yeah.
And kind of.
The first time it did what it does, which is to extend. I should have just said that. It did it off my peripheral, not into my field of vision, and it went kind of over my head to the side of over top of Hyle's head, and then it panned, because it's not just in and out, it also has panability, and it did pan, and it panned right over my head. I just saw shadow appear.
Yeah.
Like shadow panned over,
I kept thinking it was gonna bop me.
Genuine,
that's the thing.
I didn't know what it was. It was creating this shadow that was passing over my head.
It was like one of those Dementors from the Harry Potters.
I was literally afraid. I was like, I thought something was falling on me, and I just and then I saw it come into frame.
It went disconcertingly low. Like there was no actual risk it was going to hit any of us in the head because it didn't go that low, but it was enough to like make you worry about it.
Yeah.
It's
The thought could cross your mind, like, okay, like say like the 50 screws holding that thing in place simultaneously just dissolved.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was the unknown factor. I saw something panning over in the peripheral of my vision, and I was like, is it a threat? Is that a monster? Is it because
this thing eats monsters?
This thing
for breakfast.
eats monsters for breakfast.
Now, I was kind of personally hoping it would fall on us because it would make for a great story.
Yeah.
We got a great story out of it.
We got a tepid story out of it.
We sat only a few seats away from Gerard the Completionist, so if I just like that being a thing that if it can impact him, it doesn't make our seats that.
I'm sure he's saying the same thing about those four guys from the Kongversation.
He's like,
definitely.
if it could affect them, and I'm just Gerard the
He's like a really famous YouTuber. I'm very surprised that he's the competitor.
I know it's you follow the famous YouTubers and Amanda Bynes, but I don't keep up with that.
All of
Mitchell.
the above.
I live in my own bubble, and it's a blissful bubble.
It's full of bliss.
He's a really big Rare fan too.
I mean, that's great for him. I don't know him.
I don't really watch him even. it's hard to not.
Look, Hyle can't keep up with all of his fans.
So anyway, that's why our key art for this episode is a giant camera jib. This was what we saw during the entire thing, although it was not obstructing Keanu. So
we got a full view of Keanu.
Yeah,
that was good. He was really close.
He looks older. He looks older in person, though. Can I say he looks very great?
Yeah, he did.
Very put together for a man in his 50s, but he looks like a man in his 50s in person, which makes me wonder if Paul Rudd is actually like Cranky Kong in person.
Sakurai. Same story.
Yeah, Sakurai is just a corpse.
Have we seen Sakurai and Paul Rudd in the same room at the same time?
I have.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Well, it was basically.
It was the E3 I wasn't at.
He was a fun stage presence to have because he did like audience interaction, which I feel like isn't something you generally see.
He's not afraid of the audience at all because even if every single person in the audience got up to go kill him, he knows he can take them all out in a single fight.
Yeah, stand a chance.
John Wick is amazing.
Dude, he'd climb that boom mic and then just drop it on you. You still see him, not a boom mic, but a telescoping camera mount that was mounting a camera. And
he'd talk you into the way of a bullet.
If Keanu told me it was a boom mic, I'd believe him.
No argument. He clearly had a script, and he was super comfortable deviating, and that was great. Yeah, he feeds on the energy of the crowd. because he's one of those gods that you read about.
They revealed him in the same way that they revealed a sports car later.
Yeah.
Well,
sports car
from the
made of
same
Lego.
hole.
Yeah.
They both came from the same hole, which made me wonder
It was
if
like a
Keanu
secret
became
garage
the
door.
sports car made of Lego.
And I
Oh,
spilled
dude,
some beer on it.
I've never seen the sports car in the same room as Keanu.
Well, now we just need the next day. We need to look and see if Keanu has a beer stain on his jacket.
Did you guys hear what Keanu Reeves said about what happens when you die?
No, but I want to.
No, explain.
He was on the Colbert Show, or the late night with...
Late night with Stephen Colbert.
Late night with...
Oh,
starring
that.
Or
Stephen
the Late
Colbert.
Show, I should say.
Yeah.
The Tonight Show. with
Yeah,
Conan O'Brien.
and like Keanu Reeves was being an amazing person, but also like acting in that like kind of airy sort of mystic way that he does, you know?
Like an idiot.
No, he's a very smart man.
No, I like Keanu Reeves.
He's not acting like an idiot.
But in most of his roles, he's an idiot.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like not when he is in a role, when he's like doing interviews and stuff. He's got like
He's hazy.
a strange Confucian sort of way of speaking, and like he was impressing. Yeah, sure, he was impressing Colbert a lot, and Colbert just asked him like, "Okay, what happens when you die?" And Keanu Reeves just thinks about it. He's like, "The people who love us will miss us." That's Keanu Reeves.
Dude.
That's Keanu Reeves, man.
Dang.
He exists. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and we got to
He's a
breathe
real
the same
one.
air as him today.
Yeah. It was stinky air, right?
It was pretty stinky.
I had to ask because I am anosmic, so I didn't know if it was
No,
stinky or not.
it was definitely rank, and I couldn't tell if it was us or if it was the people around us.
It was just me. I'm the people around you.
You wouldn't know because you can't.
That's why I just let it. I just let it fly.
Because you can't breathe.
You know, it's,
Or smell, or
I think
whatever.
the rule is that that who which smelt it dealt it, and since I can't smell it, I have
You've been-
never dealt it.
Yeah, you've been dealing quite a bit. No, you've been dealing quite a bit. You just don't realize it.
I
Yeah.
hate that story,
Because you're anosmic, you can't hear the sound of your own farts.
dude. I choose not to accept that, and we're gonna move on.
Anyway, so yeah, Keanu was there because he was in a game or something. I don't know.
He's in Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk 2077, which comes out in 2020, 57 years earlier than I thought.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Although it's going to be pretty silly 57 years from now. What, we're all stopping.
No, you keep talking while I read it, and then this is a lull.
We have to read the chat from this
Yeah,
tiny phone,
sorry.
so it's hard to keep up with sometimes. We apologize.
Yeah, but I liked Keanu Reeves. He was a really good moment.
He was a really good
I feel
moment.
like that's a good way to describe
And-
him.
By pure coincidence, I had packed this shirt.
Explain what
no,
the
no. That's if you're watching on video, you get to know.
Yeah.
But if you're listening on Apple Podcast, not iTunes, Apple Podcast,
You don't get to
iTunes
know.
is dead. That's what you get, Apple Podcast, for changing your name.
You don't get to know Cameron's fun shirt.
Yeah,
It's pretty great.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
wearing my ironic sausage shirt.
And if you want to know what that means, you have to watch the YouTube
You
video.
do.
Hashtag
Yeah.
ironic sausage.
I'm wearing and
That-
you only get that from the video.
And Hyle left, and he's no, the lighter fluid, really? Okay, and he's setting himself. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay, set himself on fire,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, he's not even screaming. That's the fun part. Yeah. Well, now he's in a.
Yeah, because of the fire.
Because of the fire we described. We're good at that.
We're not in.
Do we want to talk about another
yeah.
game?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have one in mind.
Oh,
Forza Horizon 4 had DLC that was quite
a Lego.
Yeah.
quite a Lego car.
Mitch ruined it.
We saved
The
that
game
for
is
the end.
canceled.
His little stories
That
have
was-
the end.
That was a fun reveal, though. Like, when they first, revealed it. Could you tell the car was made out of
No,
Lego?
I couldn't. I didn't know
No.
what it
Because
was.
there was too much mist and
Yeah.
lighting
They bring
behind
out
it.
a car, and you're just like, I've seen those. And then
Yeah.
they show a trailer for Forza, which it also has cars. But then you see like a cow that's a Lego cow, and then like a car.
Because it's such a cliche to put like a real sports car on the stage every E3. It's the lamest thing companies consistently do.
It is.
I'm really.
I
not
think
a
there
fan of
might
it.
be an audience there that is like,
It is.
So I don't think it's lame. They're just not.
Oh, there were a
me.
bunch of cheers for it when it like first
People
rolled out.
think
of the
cars
smoke,
are cool.
and people
Some
just
people-
thought it was a
some
regular.
people-
Okay,
car.
here's the thing. People think cars are cool, but
I think video games are cool, but like if you show me that you have a video game on your shelf, and then you invite me over for like borscht, I still have to eat the borscht, you know.
yeah, no, exactly. I
It's
know
not
exactly
related
what you
to
mean. Weirdly
the fact that
enough.
I love.
I
It's like-
shouldn't be sipping on my
Keanu
beverage
Reeves.
when he's
Keanu Reeves
talking.
will elicit a reaction because you don't see a Keanu Reeves on the highway every single day, and Keanu
Now-
Reeves isn't gonna like rev for no reason and act like a jackass just because he's Keanu Reeves.
No.
So when I see Keanu Reeves, I'm gonna be like, that is an impressive sight, that Keanu Reeves.
What
But
a-
when I see a
what a
sports
specimen.
car on a stage, I'm gonna be like, well, I see jackasses in those every day. I don't really care. And also, I waited in line for 2 hours just to see this. But if it's made of Lego, that's different.
Now here's the trick. Forza is a video game that is about cars.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was on brand.
No, you have a good point. The thing is, though,
To have cars in it, pretty on brand.
I felt that way. That's my personal feeling.
I feel like they should have invited the car to talk about it a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. My first press conference at an E3 was 2017 Microsoft, and I, up until that point in my life, had assumed that everyone felt the same way I did about when they bring out sports cars in press conferences, which is just like, let's move it along. Why spend this kind of money?
right.
This is a crazy thing to do.
It is.
And the answer to my assumption was that I was wrong, because everyone around me exploded with excitement to see the new Porsche for Forza in that press conference, and it was surreal because they were so into it. They were so very into it.
To be fair, these are the same people who were chanting Xbox.
Now let me ask you a question real quick, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. You've probably seen many cartridges in your lifetime for Donkey Kong Country, yeah?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever seen one that is like that really rare, the competition cartridge?
Yeah.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
But when you saw it, you were like, oh, that one's special. You got a little excited, didn't you?
No, I was like, this is a more annoying way of playing Donkey Kong
But
Country.
you weren't excited to be in the presence of a rare copy of something?
Not really, no.
Well, then my whole example breaks down.
I have a version of Donkey Kong Country made of soap.
Now, why?
Because there's a company that makes SNES cartridges that are made of soap.
The trick is you have to beat that one fast enough before the heat of the Super Nintendo melts the soap into the system and ruins it.
Yeah. That's not actually a working cartridge.
I feel like a lot of people, if they were like, whoa, a competition cartridge, that one's pretty rare. I'm excited to see it. And I feel like you're not a car fan, but if you were a car fan, they bring out a car and you're going to say, you as a non-car fan think that's just like any other car.
I don't want to dwell on this too much, but I'm like the kind of person who is mildly interested in seeing a car. But if it's so far away that I can't even tell it's made out of Lego at first, then it's...
Also, you're not going to get to drive this car.
Let's move on to the fact that it was made of Lego, because we haven't devoted a lot to that.
That was... Yeah.
Yeah, also, Cameron, like, there's the difference between being excited to, like, drive and see and be around cool cars, and then being shown that someone has a Porsche 911 that's like really cool.
Stop saying 911.
That's the title. That's the title of the car.
Well, that's very offensive. Porsche.
They did it.
They can't change it. It's just what it is.
Yeah, it's pretty offensive because everyone knows the name is pronounced Porsche, but the cars
Thank
don't
you.
always do that themselves. So yeah, I agree.
I thought you said borscht.
Wait, it's pronounced Forza?
It's pronounced Forza.
And so the DLC is Lego themed. And the cars are made of Lego.
And it's Lego, not Legos.
Yeah, Forza is Italian for forts. Forza.
And the environment's made of Lego. But you can drive the cars.
Some of the environment is made of Legos. I got to play this one too, and I was driving between...
Yours comes later.
I was driving between
you don't have permission to
a
speak
Lego
right now, Mitchell.
land and like a real land, and like there's a division of where the Legoland starts and the real Forza Land starts, and it's kind of cool that
this feels like a really asynchronous tie-in, but that's also what makes it really cool.
Yeah,
like there was kind of a through line between the Hot Wheels tie-in they did for Horizon 3, because you get, okay, these are toy cars, and you can also translate them into real cars that just have really fanciful designs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This kind of feels like, okay, well, the through line is we're doing another toy, but it gets to be so out there that it's a really fun concept to throw into this open world racing game.
What's excellent about it is when you see the gameplay of Lego cars in Lego environment, you're like, okay, that's fine. It's like a Lego racing game. But it's when you juxtapose the opposing styles. When you see the Lego cars in high detail environments, or you see the high detail real cars driving around the Lego environments, and you have that mishmash.
And you can buy a Lego home for yourself. Like, that was a thing, like, at the end of the trailer. Like, they have, like, a Lego equivalent for, like, every major mechanic, it looked like.
But as millennials, we will never own a home.
He used mechanic, but it wasn't a pun on purpose. It was an accident.
I mean, frankly, those Lego sets are also expensive.
Yeah, I can never afford a Lego set either.
Do you think it'd be more or less expensive to just build your home out of Legos?
More expensive.
More.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, then you should.
It could
You
fall
shouldn't
down.
do that now.
Yeah.
It could
In that
even
case,
fall down.
You should
No.
do it.
So,
Also, like,
what other games?
you know, you need...
We're
If
still
you
talking
put in
about
Lego carpet, is
My
it
bad.
still made of Lego?
What
Because
am I
I
doing
just...
trying to move the
It's
conversation
going to be so
along?
uncomfortable to
No,
walk around
We
in.
haven't even hit the 2-hour mark yet. Come
I'm
on.
an idiot. I hate me.
So, what else? What else struck our fancy? Tweaked our nips. At
So, Microsoft acquired Double Fine.
oh yeah, that was a big
Yeah,
one.
that one,
Yeah.
that got the biggest reaction out of me. Like, what?
I know, because you
what-
screamed into my ear.
Yeah, I'm still like,
Well,
what the
only
fuck?
one
What
of
the
them.
fuck is going on? Yeah.
So last year when they were
yeah.
announcing their rampage, absorbing all those companies,
The rampage.
their real inquisition, just going around taking things.
The Mine 2018.
Playground games totally made sense because it's the Forza Horizon.
We were
game.
joking in the line that they were going to announce they had acquired Reggie Fils-Aimé. Like, that
Yeah.
was going to be the big reveal.
The
a little disappointed that didn't.
Ah, yeah, I am too.
oh man, what's the game with the masks? You know, the
We Happy Few?
We Happy Few team, where they acquired them. That made sense because that was also a Microsoft tie-in game. And then Obsidian wasn't like it always associated with Microsoft, but Obsidian has a very public history of not making deadlines because of budget issues and like just very troubled developments because of money in general. So even though you'd think, okay, well, probably it is better if there's more smaller companies in the industry, but in this specific example, it's good for Obsidian to have an additional
Stability.
Stability. And then they did Ninja Theory later, or no, before Obsidian actually, and that one was more like, okay, they've previously made statements about how they're really proud of how they're able to get AAA looking games done on an indie or single A budget. So that's interesting, but maybe cool and maybe a good idea for Microsoft because Ninja Theory is always so good. They're just always so good. And now with Double Fine, it's like, I kind of don't like this. I think it's really scary how like oligarchical the industry can become.
But that's the entire world.
We don't know to the extent how
but I think
one-sided
it's bad
you know,
there too.
It might not be a hostile takeover. We don't, it could have been a
The
mutually
fact that Tim
beneficial.
Schafer is still there.
Tim Schafer seemed to be fun with it. Like he was playing around.
Fun with it?
Yeah, like he
did
was doing
seem that.
jokes.
Yeah.
He was doing.
Well, I like that they set it up as like, oh, you're gonna force us to change, like kind of playing into the paranoia Rare fans had for.
Yeah.
And this seemed to be like they knew this would be big news out of the conference because Phil Spencer showed up wearing a Psychonauts shirt.
Yeah.
And like the most that clues you into is Psychonauts is going to be here.
Yeah. It's the same deal of like, I don't think that Disney acquiring Star Wars was ever going to be bad news for Star Wars, even though I guess that's controversial. I don't think Disney acquiring Marvel was bad news for Marvel. I do think that Disney continuing to acquire all of these smaller companies is probably bad in a net
I think
force
it's
for the creative
you're
thing.
seeing like the potential monopoly
Yeah.
forming, and that's I see that, but I feel I also my like short term concerned brain is saying like short term this seems like good for Double Fine.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it is good for Double Fine.
The thing is, though, with the games industry, as compared to the movie industry, is you're always going to have startups and new companies forming that aren't under these umbrellas. So if it gives financial stability, something like Double Fine, I don't really have a problem with it if this is what they want.
I think if you compare it to someone like Sony, who has been known to have a pretty robust first-party collection of developers,
From not too many first-party studios.
but
like
I mean,
just a
well,
handful.
what is Microsoft up to now? Like 12?
Like 14. It's
like
13 or 14.
7 new ones in the past year.
And
Well, it's 8 now.
it's funny to think like all the way back to this. Like it was
Of size.
such a big deal when they bought Rare.
Well,
Like,
and
that's a deal that people still aren't over.
so
and now this is something that happens yearly with multiple companies.
yeah. And Rare, by the way, Rare is now still thriving with Microsoft, thriving more than they probably ever were in the entire history of them being owned by Microsoft. But to speak on the flip side of your concerns, though, as somebody who has been following Xbox and has owned an Xbox console since the Rare acquisition, I think that what we're seeing now, and this is something that Cameron and Jeff and I were discussing earlier, is that you're finally seeing the Xbox brand diversify itself to the extent that we wish it would have when they bought Rare back in 2003, because Rare was such an outlier for their output back then. But since Phil Spencer took over, we really are seeing the Xbox brand get away from the quote-unquote dude bro audience.
And especially also with the rise of Matt Booty and his influence on acquisitions in the past
You
couple
like
years.
saying booty.
I do. I want him and Phil to have a baby. We'll call it Phil Booty. But my point is this: this is a real poignant point.
It's a real important point.
Matt Booty, I'm
just gonna get a drink. I'll be right back.
Understate how much he has had an impact on the acquisitions and the formation of new studios in the past couple of years, since he has been in a major player role at Microsoft.
And even like just talking about things that have changed over time, another reason this acquisition was so shocking to me is I remember back in the day, I mean, it's, to my understanding, Psychonauts was going to be like early in development, an Xbox exclusive game published by Microsoft.
This has some history.
Microsoft dropped out of publishing it. And I mean, Psychonauts is kind of, Double Fine has kind of had a history of having like tumultuous relationships with publishers. Mm-hmm. So it shows a changing climate, like how the climate has changed at Microsoft, that they actively pursued Double Fine. I think it shows how the perception of Double Fine has evolved.
I don't want to interrupt your point, but Hyle went to extraordinary lengths to not interrupt your point. So much so that he crawled like a worm on the floor.
It made a lot of noise.
His face
went through great lengths not to be picked up on the camera that you just completely undermined.
The face was really...
Instead of just accepting the magic trick of Hyle exiting...
Oh no, I didn't want to let him have it.
He didn't show up on the
opposite
camera,
direction.
but he for sure showed up on the microphone. But despite all of these points,
Jeff's
which I
farts
think
are
are
showing
good,
up.
But
too,
anyway,
he
what I was
doesn't realize
going with
Yeah.
is this is why I think, at least in the short term, this is a good thing for Double Fine because it gives them a sense of stability that I don't think they're used to having.
I think Double Fine is not that kind of company. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I have no idea what goes on.
Well, now they're not a company.
Granted,
had
I'm
funding.
attaching personification to a company
They've had
that may
funding
not be
issues.
there.
And
I don't know.
most projects have had
am
funding
fully
issues.
copying to ignorance on that.
Most projects have had funding issues.
With Double Fine has a history of funding issues and struggles with that. And I think that there's very clearly pros and cons to being independent. There's a lot of pros. And someone like Tim Schafer is very appreciative of the pros that come with being independent. But having to not worry so much about where you get your money from is so big for a studio's ability.
Boy, that sounds nice.
So big for a studio's ability to just focus on making games.
Yeah, no, I don't. Again, I think this is a good arrangement for Double Fine. I think this is a good arrangement for Xbox as well. But it's what you said earlier, Hyle, about like there's always going to be more new studios at that kind of small level. I don't actually think that's completely true right now. If you look at the remaining like AA studios, there really aren't that many. Like we have the AAA studios, the EA, Activision, Ubisoft. You know, they're relatively safe. And we've got indie, which has always been, as only as good as the individual project is. But
right, I mean,
we had tons of like AA.
I like Temple of Doom, but
yeah.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, though.
Shia LaBeouf is great,
but the AA's.
We like in the PS2
my favorite
GameCube
battery
era, we had so many smaller studios that weren't completely indie that could have like 40 people in them or so. And now, like, think of how many of those still exist that haven't either been A, bought out, or B, completely dissolved, like Telltale Games.
It's not all the changing of the dynamics of the conglomeration of things. Some of it is the changing of the realities of game design in the era of HD and in the era of online networking and things like that, which are more complicated than a studio of 40 can often solve.
The thing is, if I am a fan of a studio, I want to see that studio survive no matter what it takes. And right now, at the very least, I understand your concerns because I share the same concerns about media conglomerates becoming bigger and bigger, and then we're only left with like two or whatever. But I feel like, let's say Rare was still not owned by Microsoft and Rare was struggling, and Phil Spencer swooped in, bought Rare. I would view that as a good thing right now, especially with the culture at Xbox Studios being far different than it was back during the Matric era. I understand your concerns completely, Mitchell. It's completely valid, and honestly, probably the more ethical way of looking at it. But on a pure visceral level, I don't have a problem with this.
No, I mean it bodes well for the Xbox brand.
And Double Fine, honestly, probably.
Yes, it does. It's up to you how much you value the Xbox brand. But
for the moment they like Psychonauts 2 at the very least is still coming to other platforms just like Minecraft.
And Obsidian's game is too, The Outer Wilds Worlds.
Now whether that's going to happen,
the other one.
whether that's going to happen with projects after this, who knows?
Yeah, probably not. I think Bleeding Edge is Xbox exclusive, right? And
is Minecraft Dungeons an Xbox exclusive, or is that every?
I don't know.
Probably not.
It should. You would think it would.
They may have said that in the presentation. It may have been blocked by the boom camera. I don't know.
They're not unwilling to bring things to other consoles, not just in a sort of grandfathering them in capacity. Sometimes it makes sense that the market for a game
there's
like
also
Cuphead,
Cuphead on Switch.
The market is beyond.
Well, that's another thing we didn't see that I thought we were going to see, like some sort of explanation of that initiative of other consoles.
Yeah, so this was also a big disappointment on my end because, again, rumors were going wild for months, and not just rumors, but pretty much like the most obvious flirting on social media between like Nintendo and Microsoft.
I gotta ask, that tweet we got like shortly before the conference that there was going to be something new. Was that the car? Was that Keanu? What was the something new?
A new console. I mean, Project.
The wording was, we've invited something new on stage.
Keanu
or the Lego car. I don't know.
The word "new" is in his name, and
but
that's
something.
True.
That's somebody.
Keanu. Well, is he somebody, or he's
it was
sort of a thing?
It was distinctly like not someone. It was not the wording. That's what made it very curious to me.
Then maybe the Legos.
We've been told from our affiliate.
Next year they need to top it with Lego Keanu.
DJ Dustin in the chat pointing out that Nintendo uploaded the trailer for Minecraft Dungeons to their YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
That's
Also,
Avengers.
DJ Dustin also said Matt Booty's had a buttload of impact.
Excellent.
Worth repeating.
To wrap up the Double Fine thing is that I think that is for Double Fine themselves, it's going to work out fine, and then for Microsoft, it's going to work out fine. And when you add those together,
Shut up.
You just
Shut
get
up,
a
Jeff.
mutually beneficial situation.
Okay, all right, I'll allow that.
Well, it's gonna work. It's gonna work out fine, provided that the current situation stays true for a while, which has not been the case in gaming history for like.
I wanted to say that. You said
Hyle. Phil Spencer, I think, will treat them fine if he's still around.
Well, yeah, I mean, we just
The
need to
culture
ensure that
can
he
change.
stays and he's never allowed to leave, and we clone him if necessary. I'm a big Phil Spencer fanboy. Like I admit, like he has won me over completely, and I trust him to do right by Xbox, by all of the studios now under the
him and Matt.
I was gonna say Xbox umbrella, but they don't believe in those. The Xbox
I've yet to see one.
searing LA sun. But
I think Mitch brings a good point. There's definitely stability to be had under a publisher, but we've also seen the tumultuousness. I've had a couple.
But it's Budweiser.
Of Rare's stability under Microsoft as a publisher over 15 years, in the changing of how Microsoft wants to manage themselves. And so, Phil Spencer is great and has been for several years. Will Microsoft's culture stay that way and always be great? Probably not always. I mean, so certainly the stability is good, but it's not as stable.
Stability is an
imagine.
illusion.
Yeah, there's financial stability there, but
creative stability is actually accomplishable more or less if you're independent, and that's not really accounting for financial stability, which is a completely different thing. But it's a choice, and it seems like both parties are happy with this choice. So I'm not going to be like, this specific issue is like the root of all evil in the industry right now. I think it's more of a symptom. It's a symptom of something that's been going on for a while, which is just like the degradation of the AA.
Degradation. Yeah, he just said it funny.
Okay.
What did I say?
No, you said it right. I just was trying to reassure.
We're all getting tired.
Should we talk a little bit about
of the AA size studios?
Project Scarlet and xCloud, which are both kind of more on the hardware side?
Yes, I think we should.
You don't want to talk about Dying Light too?
No. State of Decay.
State of Decay
is getting a expansion, I guess. I don't remember if it is.
You don't want to talk about Gears 5?
Gears 5 is getting an
Gears
expansion.
5 had the wildest trailer.
Right?
Yeah.
That lady's head was so many heads.
There was a pretty accurate visualization of when I have like a splitting headache.
Oh yeah, my migraines before E3 pretty much had like 17 people screaming out of me. That's basically accurate.
All of the
By the way, talking about different appendages, hands
like this. The people on the audio can't get, but I'm doing it good.
So the people sitting in front of us got very excited about the Blair Witch game.
Yep. I think they were excited not about the game, but I think one of them was like, "Is this Blair Witch?" And then they got excited that they were right.
Well,
which is understandable.
I like to view it as it was somebody who was a very big fan of Blair Witch games, and up until this point has been let down their entire lives.
We've been waiting years.
And so this was... They attend every Xbox briefing hoping for a Blair Witch game, and now all their faith has finally been rewarded. And I view that as the happiest moment.
But the same crowd got also excited when there was a game... Elden Ring, but what came on the screen was people names.
Wasn't it before George R.R. Martin? There's the hand. No, but
the hand trailer. No, so there's a severed hand, and there was another hand holding that hand, and then there was like freaking 12 more hands, and they were grabbing on each other in a never-ending cascade of hand chains.
Just a menagerie.
A menagerie, goddamn cornucopia of hands.
You know, some people they get aroused by feet, and maybe the same person who was really into Blair Witch has a hand thing.
They saw these hands grabbing on these hands. They were coming out of the darkness.
It's
out
like
of the woodwork.
You got me with Blair Witch, and now you're getting my very particular sexual.
And this person
preferences.
shouted in a shout style, yeah. And Hyle and I immediately looked at each other and it's like, they really like hands. It's finally a game with 18 hands.
Finally a game with the Blair Witch, and finally a game with multiple hands. This is...
Most games only have one.
That's right.
The left. And
Most
then
games only have the left hand.
Yeah. Name 6 that don't.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no, you don't have time.
That's it.
It's not in the show notes.
Yeah. Show notes are all the way over there. We don't know.
No, we tried to talk about an interesting thing and then you didn't. But the hardware stuff that.
Okay. Let's talk about the hardware.
Well, so
and I guess we're just skipping the Elite controller too.
We'll start with X.
Who cares about the Elite controller?
The Elite controller is hardware.
I don't even have an Elite controller.
It doesn't make us
Series
hard.
1.
Yeah, the Elite controller is. I mean, like
it's just another one.
It's clearly a little bit better, and if you were thinking, man, this is just barely not good enough, there you go.
Here's the thing about the Elite controller Series 2 is the whole like you can switch out the sticks, and I'm just like, who has the time? This exhausts me.
But you can set settings. You can have one setting and say, this is what I want my settings to be for this game.
Who changes their settings that much?
Well, no one, because it's never been this easy, Hyle.
It's never been a better time to join. So, xCloud, I think we'll start with xCloud and on Scarlet.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
It's in the show notes. xCloud and console streaming are the two things.
So instead of accessing like a Microsoft bank of servers that would be playing your game, you can access your own Xbox as a
server,
as a non-local server. So you can go on your phone, like somewhere far away from your Xbox, and as long as your Xbox is on and connected to the internet in some way, and you know exactly like where it is and how to access it, you can play your Xbox on your phone.
Yeah, so cloud gaming, cloud streaming, it's taken years to get to this point, but I think OnLive 10 years ago this year, which I had to say this year because if it wasn't this year, it would not have been 10 years. But OnLive was one of those startups that kind of dabbled in this, but the technology wasn't there, and they just weren't a startup is not going to be able to tackle something this complicated. But now you see mega corporations like Microsoft and Google are both attempting to get into this field, which is way more doable because those are companies that already have server farms all over the world. So the concept being the server plays the game, and over an internet connection, they stream the game to your device that doesn't have the hardware to play it, like a cell phone, tablet, laptop, toaster, oven, and a house cat. Anything like that.
Yeah. I've been working a lot with AWS, which is Amazon's cloud system.
They've got one now.
They've got the biggest one in the world by a lot. And they the thing about working with AWS that's surprising to me is it's two things simultaneously that seem like contradictions, which is how much it can do, like how really, really powerful it is when you put so many servers in a bank and just let anyone access it. And also how little it can't do. Like when you assume that you have what amounts to being the largest, most available computer in the world, and you can just let anyone access it, you'd think, wow, you can do some crazy stuff, and you're still, the technology, even with them, is still just like, still kind of rough sometimes. Like if a YouTube, or not YouTube because that's Google, but Netflix uses AWS to stream their content. And that's a lot of HD video to a lot of different people in the world. And like still it buffers, still it goes in the wrong resolution. And that's just the most powerful version of it. You know?
And it's
like,
just video.
That's without
without
constant player
with a video
input,
game,
yeah.
you need the video and all of your inputs. Your inputs are... all of the buttons you're pressing need to also make their way back to the server and then the video back
and
to
then
you.
that gets compounded with an online multiplayer game when you've got streaming content between two players that also has to communicate back and forth with each other.
Clearly, you at home can imagine the technical hurdles, but we're only now getting to a point where it's sort of feasible, but it seems like a massive priority for Microsoft into their, in the future times.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking if AWS, which is the largest cloud system in the world, still has some issues sometimes, I mean, it's really good, but it still does, then using just a single Xbox One as a cloud server, that's like kind of unbelievable. And if it actually works, amazing, huge announcement. If it doesn't, then kind of a lie of an announcement.
Sometimes it's not the hardware that it's the limitation, it's the
internet connection as
internet
well.
connection.
Yeah. I mean, that's also definitely a possibility.
Hugely. I think maybe the console streaming will be great locally. It'll be
if
very...
you're like in the same...
If I'm in my house and I want to play an Xbox game on my tablet...
Like you're functionally turning your Xbox One into a Switch.
which it's super feasible. Way better than trying to connect to a server farm. Because it's in my house. But if you want to go, to any other place, which is 92% of the places are outside of your house, you're not going to use your own Xbox. You're going to want to use the mega Xboxes, the farm.
Well, so many of the really high-end cloud services have their own like wiring systems that they own their own local internet. The internet that they live in, the section of the internet was set up by Microsoft or Amazon or Google.
Google Fiber.
Like Google Fiber specifically helps out. Was going to help out Google Stadia, and Microsoft Azure is helped out by Microsoft's own like interest in developing the internet around them. And if you do this at your house with your Xbox, it'll just be like everyone's internet again. It'll just go through so many different pathways. It's again, if it works, they've done something incredible. And if it doesn't, it's a non-announcement to me.
Well, I think it does work at least some of the time because we've seen it demonstrated.
Well, that's kind of what I mean.
It becomes a question of how feasible is this to
I'm sure it will literally work.
How feasible is this to replace local hardware? Because that's the goal. The goal will be an age where I don't buy a $400 console to have hardware in my house that computes the game, and all the computing for gaming is done at a farm with the cows and the chickens and the servers. And then I just own a really simple piece of hardware, like a phone, tablet, toaster oven, and those will just basically have just enough hardware to receive a video over an internet connection.
Actually, my toaster oven now is
really
it's a farm. Yeah, and the cows and the chickens. Actually, you put the bread in the cows and the chickens.
Is it an I oven or an E oven? Because both of those are kind of internet things, right? Like email,
all of this streaming stuff is really cool, and if it really, really works to the degree they say it is, or say it will, which is to say, like, it needs to actually hit at least 1080 60 frames, which is what we would expect out of a console game, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're aiming low for now, which would be understandable and still fine, 720 30 frames. That would again be like mostly doable and like not far away from what Breath of the Wild was, and that was fine for a lot of people. That would be very impressive, but it's almost like saying this is the future of gaming, and I'd say yeah, if that works, it is the future of gaming. But
change.
The question is not if. The question is when.
It's like if Nintendo came out in the mid-90s with information on the Ultra 64 and said, we're able to render so many polygons in real time now. 3D gaming is now completely within our sights. It's a reality.
That's less scary to me, though.
And then they don't show Mario 64. That's the idea. Like, they don't show it, so you can't...
Well, no, that's not true, because I think a number of these presentations, not the one we saw today, but they have shown impressive
man.
public displays of cloud gaming. But of course, those are going to be under a catered sort of environment because you can't show it publicly if it's not like
they're
set
saying
up, like,
this is like one of the cheapest laptops we could find. We did it specifically so
it's playing
would be,
Assassin's
like,
Creed
bad.
Odyssey. That was Stadia's thing.
Yeah, and Stadia, that's still like okay, man, but like there's no way that those 4 phones that you streamed that on, or that you did the little demo of playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey on each one. There's no way that you didn't make a specific, get a specific other router only for those 4 phones, so that presentation went off without a hitch. Because if those were just in the general like hall Wi-Fi, I mean, that would be a real test.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing with any kind of streaming console, like even like I'd say even a few years down the road is you can account for how well your hardware runs under ideal conditions. It's accounting for your consumer base and the varying quality of internet access throughout your worldwide audience.
A little bit of a tangent, but this is a topic that's a little bit personal to me, and I'm being genuine here, is that the very first podcast I ever recorded was about the reveal of OnLive, which was the first big startup on cloud gaming, which was 10 years ago this year. And I already said that line. but that was my first podcast ever. And I said then, this technology is amazing and it will change the world someday. And today's not that day. And it is the future of gaming, but the future is a sort of nebulous, you don't know when it will come kind of future. And it's not to 2009. And I don't know if it's 2019 either. So we'll see. Because, there's a lot of infrastructure that has to go into making that level of internet available.
It reminds me of all the times we say virtual reality is the future of gaming. And that was in the early 90s.
Sometimes we're wrong.
And then it came back around again. And I feel like we're moving away from it again.
Virtual reality feels like to me like it goes in a similar loop to 3D movies.
One thing we know for sure is in gaming space.
I feel like virtual reality is a bit more
I'm not dismissing this. This is absolutely where everything is headed. I'm just somebody who is very I'm skeptical. I'm somebody who needs a little bit of tangibility in my life. I'm somebody who prints out all of the barcodes I need at E3 because I don't trust my phone not to blow up or die or...
You still go to mapquest.com.
And incidentally, my phone very nearly did die before we could register our barcodes. Yeah. And the reason that happened was every time there was an Xbox World Premiere, Hyle and I would get our cameras ready thinking, oh, this might be a rare game that we have to cover, or a Sea of Thieves thing, and we'd immediately see, oh, it's not, and power everything back.
Oh, there are zombies. Okay, put it down.
It takes you a minute to realize, and then they put a logo on the screen like, coming from Namco Bandai, and you're like, okay, turn the camera off.
Minutes look like such assholes, but I mean, I guess I am, but...
We're a little bit.
No, but can I just say real quick before we move on to Scarlet, that it was very, very refreshing. Why did you do a weird,
I don't know. Kyle, I don't have explanations for you. What is your story? You continue with that one.
No, I was just very happy how few zombies there were
actually, and I wanted to bring this up, and I forgot
Andre brought up a good point in the chat, too.
Well, most of them were in the Bethesda conference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you're going to refer to Andre, I want you to make the point, because I can't read that fast.
And also, we don't know how long ago we made this comment. We don't know if you're referring to his most recent one, or...
the one about Dying Light 2.
The Dying Light 2 devs clearly listened to last year's Microsoft E3 Kongversation. Their trailer was all about how even in dire situations, we have to retain our optimism and humanity. Yeah, I guess.
No, I wanted to say this. I wanted to say this.
Clearly listened to it.
Is how impressed I was. And maybe this change has been coming gradually, or it's already come, and I just haven't noticed it in past years. But being at the Xbox press briefing live, I noticed, and it felt like a drastic shift to me, how colorful it was. How even the games
green
about...
and white.
Green, how even the games about dire situations or taking place in deserts. Even those games were not mud colored. They were full of neon.
It's
and
been
colorful.
a greater industry trend, but yes, this is like a height of it, I think.
So I first started
Which will only
attending.
get higher.
I first started attending E3 2015, and I attended the briefing that year. Basically, almost everything but like Cuphead and Rare were mud-colored pieces of shit. Not the games, but everything looked visually like a turd, and we have gotten away from that. Just the dreariness.
You know what's great is you can make a game dark and colorful.
Yes.
Yes, and that is what they're, it's so much more appealing artistically to have the variety on screen than a game that is entirely all of the 4 types of brown.
Even like Gears, which like became a meme when it was the first one was new, like of being a very monochromatic game.
Emblematic of
Gears
that era.
5's promotion, the whole conference, very colorful.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I think it's one of those issues where, like, if you want to make a brown game, I think it's a valid aesthetic. It's just when it's so many. It's the CalArt style argument again. It's not one thing's problem. It's just that there's a lot of the same thing, and you want diversity.
I abhor industry trends in anything. I abhor when movie posters were all orange and blue.
You put industry trends in anything?
Yeah, no. I'm
just
like,
a white statement.
be individualistic. No. Like, don't just chase
Trends
everybody's
aren't
tail.
bad, but it's when they're overwhelming.
I don't know. He gets them in anything.
Well, that's his.
Okay, it was hyperbole to make a point because we could like really break this down for 45 minutes, but no, if I want to be succinct, I have to use hyperbole.
There's 4 types of brown, that's true, and we only saw, I think, 2 this day, and we saw every type of purple.
Yeah, they really nailed purple. They got all of purple done.
They did all the purple, a couple greens, a little bit of what do you call that? Blue.
Well, Mitchell has to get to his little tea party he attended. So why don't we talk about Scarlet real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because
she was great.
Really shouldn't have been a ghost in the show.
Why are you trying to sexualize Xbox
Scarlet
is
why did I say there's nothing sexual about saying a person's great?
No, but you went there. Like, you were like... you're like leering at the concept of it.
I think Hyle just doesn't respect me, and that's bleeding.
So yeah, the next Xbox console, the Xbox 2, as we referred to it as earlier.
So dumb.
They, one of the things they mentioned was something about I wish I had looked up the exact wording, but it was about bringing together 4 generations of gaming, and I think that vaguely refers to backwards compatibility going back to the first Xbox.
Yeah, just this.
Now, it clearly refers to Nintendo because they're going to have all the Nintendo games on. They didn't announce it.
Well, actually, it goes back to Phil Spencer's great grandfather. Yeah. They all have been gamers, and no, I think I didn't have a point to make, so maybe you talk.
Me?
Well, can I maybe like the thing that struck me most about Scarlet, right before we even found out any hard information about the project, was Phil Spencer came out and kind of like between the lines said, we made a mistake with how we told you about the Xbox One and the direction we were going and had to course correct.
There's not going to be a spy camera in this one.
Yeah, Xbox One, they said, hey, we got a new console. We didn't name it anything good. We named it the Xbox One, which is like a lie. It's not the right name to have it. And by the way, it spies on you, probably sells your data to the ad companies.
I will always remember they had theatrical ads for the Xbox One like after they announced it, and I remember going into a movie theater and seeing like walking to my seat, seeing that ad playing about the Kinect like being able to see where you were.
Yeah.
And there were people in the seats in front of me just horrified by this.
Like this is building up a profile of your advertising interests.
Well, they got so arrogant. They got so arrogant that they thought that like, oh, dude, Xbox 360 is on top of the world. We're beating out Sony for the first time. Let's just go ahead and
like the The nomenclature
Let's
was
just
this.
be
This
shitty.
is about games.
Yeah, and
This
on
system
top of
is gonna
that,
be about
they were
games.
saying like, okay, by the way, we're gonna spend half of it talking about how you can route your TV feed through your Xbox, so while you're watching TV, it's on your Xbox,
Yeah.
and you can stream football.
You know, like a VCR
You can
from
stream
the 80s.
football. You know.
Now, hey,
football
don't-
or soccer, as they call it.
Well, don't badmouth football or gridiron football, as we call it in America. We call it football.
Don't dox football.
No, because somebody got really excited about Football Manager.
Football Manager 2019 is a game that excited one man a lot.
Yeah, no, he was in our row, and he said, "We heard Football Manager."
Yeah, they put on the screen 2 games. One of the games was Football Manager, and off in the distance was a man who said, "Football Manager!"
Now, given that we know their past on Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed, do you think that was any of the rare people?
Oh, no.
No.
That was just some schmuck.
But no, I like to think this schmuck. Here's what I like to picture. I like to picture this schmuck runs a Football Manager equivalent to DK Vine. And so,
Oh, yeah,
so their
it's-
community
it's
right now
fun.
is just over the moon.
It's
Completely happy. Just like the Blair Witch person. Like Blair Witch video game Vine is so happy
I have
tonight.
so much context for what a fan of Football Manager
Yeah,
is,
I know
and
this
I
person's
don't
entire
want to
life.
share any of it because the less you understand, the funnier it is.
Yeah.
I feel like it's funny for you to think this is just a weird guy who likes this really niche thing.
Yeah.
But like I get where it all comes from. I know the history,
You know the history
but we're gonna lie about
of
it. We're
Football
gonna-
Managers?
Let's be
Football
real.
no.
If it was It's Mr. Pants, we would be that
I've
guy.
already said I'm not gonna tell.
But
it.
we would be justified because It's Mr. Pants was cool.
This will not be a good episode.
This will not be.
Yeah.
So the Scarlet, they completely went the opposite direction from the Xbox One in terms of this is the first time they've talked about it, and all they talked about was hardware and what does that mean for video games.
They got some new chips in it. That's exciting.
They talked about,
an
like,
AMD chip.
Like this is how much more powerful that it is than the Xbox One.
Although, is it?
A big focus was on load
Sorry,
times.
Xbox One X.
Load
Like,
times. Now
even-
that's not a buzzword. That's an actual quality
And,
of
like,
life, relatable
Yeah.
concept that I can understand.
Even describing in detail the things that developers do to get around load times, like plopping you in a nondescript hallway or an elevator to mask load times and give the impression of seamless loading. Like that's why you get stuck behind doors in Metroid Prime sometimes.
Yeah, this is they went out of their way to really formulate like how much can we tell you that is technically new information about this project
But not detailed.
that still doesn't tell you anything about this project. Like the fact that there's shorter load times is obviously great, and the fact that it's more powerful, so power begets everything: speed, frame rate, graphics. But I get the distinct feeling, and I'm not really upset about this at all. I think this is actually great because I'm not ready for the next generation of consoles. I
don't have
good.
the
This
money.
is this
I don't
is
have the money for it.
This is still like a very nebulous thing to me. It's like
Yeah.
I'm okay being told like baseline.
Yeah.
This is how much
What
bigger
I want
I'm
is
gonna
I want
be
them to come out and
expected
tell
to
you.
be.
By the way, the games will be in 4K. Or by the way, the console costs X dollars. Or by the way,
Well, they did actually give one thing, which was the release window, which
the
is
release window's big.
holiday 2020.
They never told me about the flops.
Can I
How many flops does it flop?
Can I admit to something? Whenever they announce the next generation of
Yes, you
consoles
can.
and they have a release date, a general release date, I have an overwhelming sense of anxiety because I'm not ready. I don't have the money for it, and I don't want to be left behind.
I've never bought a console during the launch window.
I know, but it's such a like, oh god, like I'm happy with where we're at right now. I'm content. I don't want to have to go to a new console.
Graphics have like really the visual aesthetic of games in general has really never been my particular fave.
And I feel
So-
It's all about games.
And even though they say how much more advanced it's going to be, I don't think that's true. I feel like we've hit
It's
level where we're not going to get much more
You're getting
advanced for a
diminishing
while.
returns for sure.
Yeah.
But
Well,
There's only so
it's
much
not
money a
about
studio can pour
the
into
graphics.
making high resolution textures.
Yes.
More powerful doesn't always mean better graphics. So
No, I realize that. I realize
you're
that,
going to get
but-
things like load times. Now that's actually a tangible real
Yes.
thing that can improve because
Yeah.
it's kind of bad right now.
Machine learning, AI, like there's a bunch of things that you can do with more powerful hardware that are gameplay related. That said, I think that Sony and Microsoft are both trying to be the second person to talk about the console. Specifically because...
So they can respond.
Yeah, because I think both Sony and Microsoft are ready to talk about their consoles if, like, all else equal. But we saw what happened. We saw Microsoft announce first in their Xbox One in 2012 or 13. And Microsoft went first, and they said a bunch of like bad stuff about it, and they.
That was the tail end of the Matrix era. Like,
yeah.
So,
They did it pretty bad.
The thing that messed them up more than anything they actually did was the fact that Sony got to do it right after them, and they
always want to be
references
legendary
to why the Xbox One was bad.
They even made the video about like, this is how you share games on a PlayStation.
You give them the
you give them the
because
the
Xbox was
One,
threatening to get rid of discs.
they were gonna say there's licensed DRM. So like,
oh god, that's right.
Every
they backpedaled
player.
so hard on a lot of the things that they said.
And credit we're not trying to trash talk because credit where credit's due.
Oh no, credit is due. They turned around
the ship
so much.
But the damage was done.
Phil Spencer turned the ship around.
Right.
Yes.
And
granted,
we
you
all
still
agree
see
with
remnants of
Booty.
it. You still see remnants of it.
Just recently. Calm down. Like in the past 2 years.
I'm a fan.
The Xbox was ship turned.
You're a fan of the booty.
I'm a fan of the booty. I'm a booty man.
I was complimenting the booty.
I am a booty baby, and the point I want to make is, you're right, because that conference was legendary. When Sony came out and said, hey, by the way, we don't do this, that, or the other, and it costs $100 cheaper.
So I don't think either party are in risk of like announcing a bad thing about their console specifically, because I think we know now, like, hey, don't bundle in an unnecessary camera peripheral that makes it $100 more expensive. Don't do that. Don't do the DRM thing. Don't do the like any number of things that you did that made it bad. But you can still one up the other person. You can make it slightly cheaper. You can make it slightly more powerful. You can make release it a little bit earlier. And actually, that I feel like that's Microsoft saying, okay, Sony, I'm telling you one bit of something, so now you have to announce it because I know you want to beat Holiday 2020 now. So do it, and then you have to tell me what it is when you do it. And then when Sony says, okay, it's autumn 2020, and we're coming out with the PS5 first, and when it comes out, it'll be the only console of that generation that you can buy, so that'll like be more competitive. But then once they say that the information about that, then Microsoft's like, oh, but it's that expensive? Okay, well, I'll make it just a little bit less expensive. And it's just this chess game that they're playing right now, and I think because of that, they've slowed down the jump to the next console.
There's something to be said for the fact that I already confidently know the name of PlayStation's next console. And I thought Xbox to Xbox 360, it was all right, okay. And then they were like, well, the next one is number one.
Yeah.
Then now I don't even know where to go. I don't know what's happening.
I just know my number one request for Scarlett is please change the names of the buttons. Don't let them be view and menu anymore.
I was thinking that X was pretty dumb. Go with like, I don't know, it's some letter.
Because that is I think something that was grandfathered in from the original direction of the Xbox One, the view and menu buttons that they just could not shake once they had already made that commitment.
Having a device in your house that is a home media like base is not a bad piece of hardware, but it's super tone deaf at a convention or an expo that is centered around gaming. So you should never show up at E3 and spend 50% of it talking about how good your thing is at playing DVDs or whatever.
And it sounds like we're just digging a lot into the old Xbox One presentation, but that's because this is such a course correction.
Lessons learned.
Exactly. This demonstrates how much they've
one of this
experience.
When we look back at this last decade and we see like where we've come from the last 10 years, one of the most remarkable stories is the turnaround of the Xbox brand and how, Jeff, you used to hate Xbox.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but now look
I
at you.
had a
Now look at
PlayStation.
you. Yeah.
Before I had an N64, well before I grew up with a PlayStation. During the PlayStation years, and after that happened, they entered an era that is usually referred to as the PlayStation 2 years. I also had one of those. Then I had a PlayStation 3, and all my favorite Rare games were not even on it. They were on the Xbox, and I had to just kind of watch through like a rainy window, that kind of way, and with storms. And
I know.
Tears on the face.
I know.
Yeah, it was heavy rain because it was the PS3.
And
I read a book.
But I was happy with my PlayStation 3. And the thing that got me to make the jump, and that being said,
jumped in.
I jumped in. Xbox 2019, jump in. Rare announced Sea of Thieves, which was not only a cool new game, but it was specifically social. So it's something that I couldn't experience in 10 years. It's something I wanted to experience now. And also Rare Replay, which was a game that allowed me to go back and catch up on some things that I didn't play on my PlayStation 3, and which was great. So I made the jump, bought an Xbox One, hated myself every minute of it. I was just disgusted. I didn't even like the look of it in my house. I like pile things around it so I'd have to look at it. And for years, just sitting there thinking about like, man, I don't even own a PS4, and that doesn't make any sense. And eventually I got one. I did get a PS4 because it only makes sense to. They're so good. But also, I'm very happy with the Xbox One, and I am now, I can confidently say I am a fan of the Xbox brand as it has been built under Phil Spencer.
And I've said this before. I said this to Phil Spencer's face, which was weird. I bought an Xbox because of Rare, but I became an Xbox fan because of what Phil Spencer has done.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been really pro-consumer in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Game Pass is a big part of that, but also just like sometimes they'll just make a game because they think it's like, I don't know what it is other than just they think it's the right thing to do, because Phantom Dust was supposed to get this remake, and then it was canceled. But Phil Spencer, I think, like it's personally a big fan of Phantom Dust. And they said, okay, well, we can't do the remake. Let's do a remaster, an HD remaster, and I guess it's probably just free. And then it's free, and you just get it. It's free, and
they have a big mentality
that
is counter to anything. The modern business world is very much about nickel and diming and extracting the profit from an ecosystem.
Well, we already don't have money. We're millennials. We have no money. But they keep trying to shake us down.
It's that avocado toast.
I mean, I can draw. Yeah.
And my point is, the Xbox brand is putting a lot of assumed value into the things that are not measurably valuable.
Yeah.
If this game exists and we give it out, it will make our customers so happy that they will eventually get money from them. And that's so nebulous, but it works. It is working. I think that they're profitable, I guess, because how would I know? But like, they wouldn't do it if it's not working. And Game Pass is the embodiment of that. Game Pass is, we'll give you everything for very little, and just somehow the bottom line has to work out, or else they wouldn't be doing it. Microsoft is too big a company to be dumb. In terms of making money, they're dumb about a lot of stuff. They're not going to do something that's provably not making money, and they're still doing this. So it's working. That sort of, if we make the consumers happy, it will just work out. That's like a central mentality we're seeing, and it's a crazy thing because you don't see that in any other industry right now.
Sony specifically is acting so cocky in a lot of different ways.
Well, it's a flip side of last generation, because it's always the case that the front runner has no reason to be consumer friendly, and the guy who is like, well, we're not selling as many as the PS4s. What if we just start giving shit free?
I can throw in the example of okay, I have bought the first Donkey Kong Country a bare minimum of 4 different times on Nintendo's hardware.
Yeah.
But did you get excited when you saw the competition?
6. For me, it's 6.
I'm never going to own it. I can't.
If you saw it.
Hey, you'd get so excited.
But I mean, if I saw it on a stage, I don't know. I mean,
If you saw it on stage with
What if it was really
backlighting?
big? Like a car?
my point was not
What if it's
that.
made of Lego?
anyway, my point, if I can finish the thought, was I have bought Donkey Kong Country a bare minimum of 4 different times because I was required to if I wanted to play it on new hardware.
Right.
Whereas I can take a copy of Grab by the Ghoulies, manufactured in 2003, pop it into my Xbox One, and play it not only perfectly fine, but in higher definition than I could on my original Xbox.
What I just wanted to say to Mitchell's point was that it's easy to be pro-consumer when you are the underdog. And I think that, PlayStation gets a lot of flack for their lack of support for crossplay. But when the PlayStation 4 was so significantly more successful than the Xbox One, they have no reason to show up to the table and negotiate things that are only going to help Xbox.
Well, here they do have one reason.
Well, now they do, because consumer backlash.
The one reason is if you want to keep it, because if this keeps up the way it is, I am willing to bet that, like, even though the PS4 got the vast majority of third-party exclusivity deals and just way more sales and way more fun, in general more fun. Their games are like really good. Although I like some Xbox games a lot. We are looking at a PS5 that could potentially have none of that advantage over the next Xbox.
It always comes and goes in cycles.
Yeah.
The Xbox 360 was cocky.
The Xbox 360 was cocky, yeah.
And they really stumbled out of the gate on the Xbox One because of that. And I think that it's just history repeating itself on the flip side every time.
I mean, if you want to talk about how bad the Xbox One announcement E3 was, that the PS3, $599 US. What a bad announcement! What a crazy bad, like, the crowd gasped.
And it was nearly a year after the 360 had been on the market.
Yeah,
because the 360 came out in 2005.
It came out a year ago, and it was cheaper from the start, and it had all these games already, and and there's so much to be said for narrative and the story that forms, because like we said, the Xbox One has done well for themselves in course correction, but they will always be remembered for stumbling out of the gate there, and the PS4 just completely trouncing.
Now, personally, I've mostly forgotten all about that, just because it was a big part of the narrative. But
PS3 similarly, in the long run, pretty much caught up to the 360 in sales,
absolutely,
in global sales. But it will never be remembered as like having done that. We will remember how many people died when the PS3 came out, and it was $600, and there was only a few, and people have access to guns, and so when your thing is $600 and there's only a couple, and everyone wants it so bad, you create that demand, people get shot. Now, why are you looking at me that way?
I don't know what you're talking about.
People died that day. There were gunshots fired over PS3s. You guys have such a short memory.
Which one of these has something in it so I can move it away from him?
I don't make stories up.
They're all empty.
Except most of the time, but this one isn't one of those.
I don't remember these news stories that you...
It's too late to course correct. We're stuck with the Jeff that already stumbled out of the game.
We're stuck with Jeff 3.
We're paying a lot of attention 13
Maybe
years
the
ago.
Jeff 4 will turn things around. The 4th can of Budweiser.
You guys need to keep talking, because we need to talk about Halo Infinite.
Do we?
And while you do that, I need to get another beverage.
Look, okay.
I thought Halo Infinite didn't show enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ironic.
It's got some story stuff in it, but the story stuff being like, dude,
I feel
Master
like
Chief being there, that is the
Jeff, you might have a problem.
This is just a beer. What did I do wrong?
Just your 4th beer in one podcast.
Well, that's a good number for.
I mean, granted, this is the Kongversation, and we typically record for 5 hours, so...
Kyle, yeah, don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Halo Infinite. Now, I'm not a Halo guy, whatever. But for our first glimpse at this next generation software on this next generation hardware, it didn't really feel that impressive. Am I off base?
I feel like little things about it were impressive. Like they really
Not the hologram.
No, not the hologram.
And that was pretty little. Like
that was an
six
odd
inches
thing
big.
to start with. I feel like because it was a big focus in the very early part of the trailer. But
Well, it was really just another tease. Like last year, we got a tease of the setting, kind of where we're
Sort of
just
an
seeing
aesthetic tease.
the wild, and this we're seeing like a story, like a narrative tease of like what's Master Chief up to.
Yeah.
And in both of those, I'm not seeing like that kind of mechanical differentiation that really sells
like
games.
I would. This was for lack of. Well, it was a tech demo, kind of. Is how I viewed it because it's a cinematic trailer that doesn't tell you terribly much about the game other than outside of the story, but it was rendered in real time. That was, I think, the important thing that they wanted to show because it did seem like it was running at a smooth frame rate.
Yeah.
It was high poly and high quality textured. I feel like it's a taste of what Scarlett is going to be able to do. As like a big hype trailer for the next Halo. Well, I mean, I don't have the full perspective to know what people are looking for, but yeah, it might have been a little bit. It seems early to me.
It's early. The thing is, it was billed as our first look at Scarlett, a console that was just described to us as being 4 times more powerful than the most powerful console of all time. The Xbox One X.
No, you
What are
didn't
all those-
have to elaborate on that. I knew what you were talking about.
I knew.
What are all those
you knew.
people who got those T-shirts saying "I witnessed the most powerful console on Earth" going to do now?
They're
Because
gonna have to kill themselves.
They're gonna witness Scarlet, so they can make it true.
They could
still.
use it as dish rags when they rinse.
Oh. My point is, as far as our first look at the next generation, and I think this kind of goes back to a point Hyle made, is it wasn't
really?
impressive.
I said something profound.
No, I'll get to that.
Okay.
Don't worry,
All right.
it'll all make sense.
All right.
It is this, and that is that, to me, it looked like an Xbox One game. And we're at that diminishing returns level where the difference in graphical fidelity will be minute, and it will be iterative. And the things that better hardware are going to do for us are, I think, going to be really hard to show off in a live setting. Sure. And when we talk about we can still improve. We can make better load times. We can do the rest of the examples. I think that those are not as stage showy as showing the difference between the low poly to high poly, or regular definition to high definition, those type of changes that we've had in the past. We're at that point. It looked like an Xbox One game to me.
I think my issue with it is it felt like more of a tease for Halo fans, which is fine, but coming on the heels of all of this talk about Scarlett, I wanted more of a demonstration about what Scarlett could do.
Yeah.
Versus, tugging at the heartstrings
You know what they should have
Halo
done?
fans with
I'll
Halo
tell you right
1.
now what they
I don't
should have
know.
done is at the very end of showing us all that cinematic, they should have zoomed out of the screen, like pulled away from the screen, and showed that the whole thing was on a cell phone. Right? With cloud streaming, xCloud, I would have been like, aha, all right.
And then they zoom out more, and that cell phone is in a snow globe.
Bro!
Then they zoom out further and they just show the whole universe. Like, yeah.
Yeah, the universe has a snow globe in it. Isn't that crazy?
So, Mitchell.
Yeah.
So you're the only one of us who got to go to the media showcase this year.
Sure.
Because we don't rank, but you're super jump, so you jumped in over us, and you got to go to the media showcase. What were your experiences like?
It's a lot more casual than anything behind closed doors sounds like it is. I think.
Yeah. I've attended them in the past.
Well, you and I talked about this when we went to go get our badges today. We said that when we first started doing E3, we assumed that the exclusive things, like the private audience stuff, the personal appointment, that kind of thing, that's E3, and that's like the exciting bit.
Right.
And in reality, that's not it. I mean, like they're cool and they're fun, and you can feel important for sure. But the real E3 is the show floor that everyone gets to go to. That's E3, and that's like still the most accessible part of it. And so what this was, the showcase, it was a nice little combo of the feeling of like a closed off, smaller number of people, and just the show floor where you can just go and play a game. I knew that I was going to be playing a lot of these later on the show floor, so I didn't go around to everything, but I went around to a few things. I saw a really cool game called Hyperdot, which is like a bullet hell game where you just move your dot around to not get hit. But the twist on this is that there's always like augmentations to each level that you go to. So there's one that's based on Super Hot called Super Dot, and this game has a cute thing where time only moves when you move. So if you don't move, everything stays still. But like if you move at all, you might move
What if
something
you breathe?
into you.
Like what?
If you die in the game, you die in real life.
You do die in real life,
Okay.
which is another, I think, maybe negative part of the game. I don't think they should have done that.
I'm impressed by the technical
Yeah,
aspects
no,
of
really,
it.
and the fact that it can all be done through cloud farms. That's
Real talk though, that game had an emphasis on ways of control. You can control the dot with just a joystick like normal, or you can use I used a foot pad to move the dot around, just like almost like a Wii Fit balance board kind of. And they were telling me about all the other control options that they had. They had a control option for just eye tracking, so you can move your eyes like just around the screen.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Me neither.
There.
I don't know how you feel about
It
that.
sounds like
don't know how
a
you
very
feel about it.
accessibility-minded game, which is
Oh, well,
really
in that case, I like
impressive.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Don't you feel bad now?
no. I'm a very twitchy
Yeah.
person. Like I can't sit still, as you might have noticed, and
I mean, we're only sharing a bed, you and I.
Right.
So yeah, you're kind of twitchy.
Another one I played was Forza, which I talked about, and the other one I played was Battletoads. And
you hated Battletoads when you saw it.
I didn't hate it, but I wasn't impressed. And
I kind of thought you might have hated it.
No, I mean, like, I might have been a little disappointed in it because
I'm not 100% positive that you used the word hate.
But
I think you might.
I think this is a judgment call you made based on like one sentence that Mitchell
No, we
said.
had a conversation. I don't know. You tell it how you think it.
Okay, I was a little disappointed in the context of the press conference because I didn't think that the art style looked good in the context of that trailer, and I know that's controversial because everyone loved that trailer. But just certain things like the low number of frames in each animation, like Pimple was doing this kind of thing in the trailer, and I was like, come on, I know it's all hand drawn, which is why that is, because
I feel like I've also seen that in other beat 'em up revivals. Like there's a very big focus on having key frames that you recognize as being actively attack motions.
Yeah, that probably is a gameplay part of it, which is maybe the reason why when I got to play it and I got to see more like not staged movement outside of the setting of the trailer, I really warmed up to it. Right. And if anyone felt the way I did, I would advise them to also get invited to a behind closed doors Battletoads play session, so they can change their mind.
Well, it will be playable on
the show floor,
right?
It will also be playable on day one on launch on the Game Pass service. I'm a shill, so I just tell you that.
Fake paid actor.
But my point is that I think I might even buy that Game Pass, because if you aren't sure about a game, you can just try it anyway. Isn't that cool?
You can try things you're like pretty darn sure you aren't going to enjoy and say, well, at least I tried them.
Like Batman Arkham Knight.
Hyle, calm down.
Why do you not like it?
No! When we were sitting in the crowd and they showed like, oh, here's what's coming to Game Pass, and Batman Arkham Knight was the first thing to come up, and they got the most tepid reaction.
It was Batman Arkham Knight. Woo! And then it was
Arkham Knight is not the one.
Metro Exodus was the next one, and the response was 14 times bigger.
And I felt bad for the Batman.
Well,
But he was on the sign.
It's just an older game, you know.
I mean, that was
Metro was February.
But then there was 2 others. It was Batman, Metro, the next one, and then the 4th one.
It was
and
Hollow Knight. It's a
Hollow
good
Knight
game.
was the 3rd one, and then the
Yeah.
4th one was the one that came after that. And all 3 of the ones that weren't the first one got really good reactions from the crowd.
Yeah.
It was
but
like
Batman didn't. And
I'm
that's
sure
the
to
good
Batman
point.
it was like his parents being shot all over again.
Yeah, he
I'm
was
sure.
upset.
It's because they wanted a
He needs
PlayStation 3,
validation.
and they had the PlayStation 3 day one, and they got shot for
You
it.
get it in the cart and you're trying to get it out of there, and someone is
Joe Chill shows up,
Joe
and
Chill,
bam, it's
you-
over.
says you shouldn't have crossed me that way. And then you spilled beer on a Lego.
And yeah. Then I spilled beer on a Lego. They gave
Were you
it-
arrested?
You know what? No. Not even a little bit.
No? Okay.
That's
Yeah.
great.
So Battletoads, they had 2 parts of the game available to play. The first part is like a beat 'em up stage, and that part of the game is just not my favorite thing. Beat 'em ups, it's a lot of just kind of repeating the same button pushes over and over again.
How similar would you say it was to like Battletoads Arcade?
Very.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's pretty similar to
Very,
all
very,
beat 'em
but
ups.
better. So if you really like Battletoads Arcade, I think it'll be great. Kind of just a personal thing for me. But then the second part of the demo was the Turbo Tunnel level. So I love the Turbo Tunnel level. It's so cool. Just going around and playing
A turbo
The
tunnel.
way they
Turbo Tunnel,
reinterpreted
yeah.
like a very similar gimmick to the original was really clever, I thought.
Especially because like when the original kind of tried to play with 3D space, which is impressive for an NES game, and this is entirely 2D, you'd think that they wouldn't try to like push 3D again, but it's coming at you instead of horizontally.
It's a kind of like sprite 3D mix that I feel like I don't see very often anymore. Like you would see this kind of thing all the time on the Super Nintendo and like a little bit.
Even on the GameCube, you'd see like Beautiful Joe and Paper Mario and stuff, where you kind of like just get the 2D sprites going around in a 3D space a little bit.
And the trailer kind of, I think, either teases or I would even say promises even more variety than what we've seen. Because it mentions, 14 different words that are really fast.
One was puzzles. I know that was a big one.
Puzzles,
Adventure,
I think, is a big one for
adventure,
me.
combat, puzzles, racing,
Platforming,
and even platforming. Because we
The-
talk
the
about the original NES game has more variety in gameplay than the arcade game, which is a straight beat 'em up.
Yeah.
And I love the arcade game the most, but you don't, because it's just a straight beat 'em up.
I think the arcade game is the best because of all of the Battletoads games. It's the one that is executed the best on its idea, but just the idea of this NES game where it's just like every level is going to be a random crazy.
It's a constant genre roulette. The original.
I think that you
Battletoads.
can't make a Battletoads game and not throw back to some of the variety that was in the NES one, because that's the one people know. But I think that having that beat 'em up foundation is personally exciting to me because it's what I associate.
I think that being the backbone of the game is the right idea.
Yeah, and then you get those variety and interspersed throughout.
Which they've already shown like the right initiative, not just in the trailer, but the fact that they're showing off Turbo Tunnel. Like that's already something Battletoads Arcade didn't have.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really interested to see what puzzles means because the gameplay of either thing that I saw doesn't really lend itself to puzzles, which is neat because that would mean there needs to be at least one more, probably a few more entirely different gameplay styles.
Yeah. And the art style is good too.
And the art style is good too.
We're all in agreement there. So, go to hell. Anybody who disagrees.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, what a bummer.
No, well, that's not how we're ending it.
So-
We're ending
We
it.
might have just ended.
I mean,
we'll decide later.
Just like go play Doom instead. That's how Bethesda.
And we all agree the art's great, so go to hell.
Right. So, Conker's Pocket Tales, 20th anniversary.
That's this one? Is that this year, is it?
Yeah.
Is it today? Or is it
It
yesterday?
was-
I mean,
it was
it
yesterday.
has an anniversary every year. I just wasn't sure if you
This
meant.
is the 20th anniversary. So,
Good. Okay.
at the end of all of these conversations this week, I thought we would take a couple minutes to discuss aspects of Conker's Pocket Tales. And on this episode, I thought it would be fitting, because this is one of our favorite aspects of Conker's Pocket Tales, to talk about our favorite acorn people.
Yeah.
So I want to go around and we can all share our favorite acorn people or acorn person from the game. So we'll start on this side now, Cameron.
Oh.
I feel like I'm going to undercut everybody else with this answer, but it's Ted.
No, that's good. You're good.
No, that's fine. That's a fine answer.
But
Explain.
yeah. So
elaborate.
So I was fully exposed to Pocket Tales through DK Vine pretty much, and
Yeah,
That's all.
Like, I did-
Tales fans.
I had not
Yeah.
played the game. Like, I knew Ted Boat Builder was an icon on DK Vine before playing the game.
You're the real diva, yeah.
And
yeah.
in the course of playing the game, I discovered that Mako Islands is my least favorite part of playing it, because it's got all the rapid button press mini games that are kind of clunky and use a gimmick that I kind of abhor in any game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and the left and right one is
Yeah.
by far even worse.
Yeah,
Two-handed,
pressing left and
But,
right on the
like,
D-pad is just like there's no way
Ted-
to do it.
Ted is the
Easy.
bright spot in a part of the game that I do not enjoy very much, but it's like you're doing all of this very difficult all of these very difficult tasks so Ted can build you a boat. And that I think redeems it, and also just I have personal attachment to him because of my role in the production of the TED Talks videos.
Hyle, your turn.
I better make this long because I think Jeff is urinating because
Make
of this.
Yeah, probably.
So ordinarily, like I would say on a guttural level, probably Ted. But when I look at the Conker franchise as a whole, and I think, well, what Acorn people could serve the Conker franchise for its robust future with its many sequels we're going to get over the years, I feel like it would be Forest Guardian and Forest Wong. Because
Damn it, you took my Wong.
well, you can elaborate. I'm not going to elaborate on Wong too
Okay.
much, but I feel like those could have the best friendship with Conker should he open his heart to it. And because of that, they've really grown on me over the years. When I think about what Acorn people I would like to have by my side, it would be the Guardian of the Forest and the Wong of the Forest. I've thought about this a lot, pretty much every day of my life. And this is pretty much what I've settled on. Now, I would also say Evil Acorn, but the thing about Evil Acorn is that I feel like we glorify serial killers and just really ruinous members of society. Like, oh, here's another Netflix thing about Ted Bundy. Hey, here's a DC Comics movie about the Joker. And it's just like, I like villains. K. Rool, obviously. Evil Acorn, though, he's just a weirdo who doesn't have any redeeming qualities other than he's a weirdo, and he's a fun villain. But when I say like my favorite Acorn people, Jeff is back. It wouldn't be Evil Acorn. It would probably be Ted. But then for the franchise as a whole, Guardian and Wong.
Yeah, and you didn't have to tell people that I left because I was so secretive about it. And and the trick with that was that I had wanted / needed to pee since we started talking about Halo, probably even sooner. And anyway, but you want me to answer what? It's my favorite Evil Acorn, or it's my favorite Acorn person.
Favorite Acorn
What's your
person.
favorite Evil Acorn, Jeff?
There's got to be more than one. Evil.
Well,
I don't know if I believe
Waldorf.
in evil.
He's an option. He's an option.
I don't know if I
Is he
believe
an
in
acorn?
evil.
I think he's an acorn.
I think he
No,
is too.
it's the Matt Corna artistic interpretation of him
Corna.
that is an acorn, but the in-game sprite, I don't know if I
he's
believe
he's
it.
a balloon man.
Cameron said Ted, and what was the answer you gave?
Mine was a very complicated answer.
Yeah, I believe that.
You're free to double up if you want because the reason is going to be different.
I love.
I didn't mention one other thing, but I'll let you finish.
I want you to mention your one other thing while I think.
I was gonna say I think I should also pay respects to the Undertaker because he had the most pathos of all the Acorn people, and it's not something you would expect out of Conker's Pocket Tales to straight up murder a character.
So, what was your answer? Did you have one, or did you even have one that was mostly
His
the
answer
one?
was Forest Guardian and Forest Wong.
But Ted, but also Forest Guardian and Forest Wong for
And
reasons.
Evil Acorn wasn't one of them.
No, because Ted Bundy.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay.
And I love Ted, and what I love about Ted is that he's not even called Ted. It just happens to be Ted is on the sign in one of the two versions of the game. Which is great.
Are we sure this isn't like a Sanders Winnie the Pooh situation where it's just not even his name?
We're not sure about anything.
Ted's Boats.
Well,
It says Ted's
or
Boats.
doesn't he? Does he introduce himself as Ted?
No,
I'm so
he doesn't.
sorry.
He does not. He never
I'm
does.
so sorry. I can't remember off the top
He
of my
could
head.
be an employee.
You think I would with how many times I've watched
an
a stream?
employee of Ted's, and Ted's
Here's the
is a
thing,
man we
though.
don't see.
He seems like a Ted.
He does, because I've been hammered by you for years to think it's his name. And I like Forest Wong. I like Ted. I like Evil Acorn. I think Evil Acorn's a great answer, but it's not going to be my answer. My answer is, and now I'm suddenly not confident it's who I think it is, but the sheriff is the one who dies, right?
No.
Is the Undertaker's the one who
The
dies?
Undertaker.
Oh, okay. So the one who dies, the Undertaker, I said with confidence, is the one who's my favorite because, I mean, he died. That's a lot for a character to do in a Game Boy game that's family friendly.
He died the same year Wrinkly Kong was revealed to have died. Like, there's a lot of death that year in Rare.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a lot of death every year.
But not generally in kid-friendly games from one single studio.
Roughly a percentage of people die. the
Roughly
same
at least a percentage.
every single year. And I thought that it was great because the game has a batshit
This
crazy.
podcast died 90 minutes ago.
It goes off the rails in a way that games don't often do when they're marketed to that sort of. People think that the Bad Fur Day departure is so out of left field, but Conker's Pocket Tales is a crazy game. It's a crazy out there game, and you know, Evil Acorn's insane, genuinely. And Honker the skunk just killed a man. And Conker, the character you are, gets blamed and arrested. And you're just trying to save your birthday presents. It's like, what a game that is.
I think my favorite part of The Undertaker's death is the way it's presented to the player due to the limitations of the hardware and that it puts on the presentation, and also just the manner in which he explains. Because it kind of like... You don't know that he's explaining that he's been shot and dying until you're like midway through the conversation with him, because the same cheery music that plays in every other conversation you have with anyone in the game but Evil Acorn plays.
Yeah. That's the reason, and it's great.
And if you talk to him after he's had this big long explanation where he calmly tells you he's about to die, every time you talk to him after, he just screams.
You know, I'll summarize it like this: he's my favorite character because he died, and I think he deserves that much.
He deserves to be remembered, or he deserves to die?
He deserves to be my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to... Did it sound like I wanted him to die?
No, it didn't sound like you wanted anything. You were just unleashing indifferent justice onto him. He deserves it.
He deserves to be remembered, to be talked about, to be memorialized, because I mean, he was the Undertaker of a whole town. People depended on him.
Who undertook him though?
That's the trick, right?
That
problem happens in every town, and no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah. That's why Undertakers are never buried. They're just kind of left.
I just assume that before you're an Undertaker, you must have a son. so that if you unexpectedly are murdered by a skunk,
Did they have like Sith Lord like dynamics with
the
Undertaker?
son, it's a rule of two.
There can only be two.
And then the apprentice becomes the
Well,
master.
if you accept that the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color versions of the game are two separate adventures, that either the Undertaker actually recovered from his first gunshot
Why would I
and
accept
only got shot a second time and then died, or that was his son who took over for the first one.
But he already had another son.
Yeah.
Undertaker, third generation.
Yeah. By the
Because
way,
if
your
he-
phone has 5% battery power.
That's not my fault.
So Mitch, it's the live stream chat, and you all should be ashamed.
My favorite Acorn person is Forrest Wong, specifically because the presentation of this character and his name imply that a Wong is a synonym for monk or something of that nature. And
I
the
never
fact,
got that.
The
Yeah.
fact that like if you just bypass it and you say like, yeah, Wong, sure. It tricked you. It tricked you so hard. That's not a thing.
Stop.
There are no Wongs, so
It's a very insular
Wong-
in-joke among the team.
Mhm.
Wong
and-
is the most popular surname on the planet.
read a book.
Sometimes things that you say aren't jokes.
Yeah,
But
but
they're
you
also
always
not
present
true.
it in a way that I can't tell if you're saying something.
Your options
to
are
deceive.
to Google it later or don't.
I mean, you can't Google it right now or Mitch's phone will die.
Yeah,
so
literally, if
that's
we
not an
touch
option.
this, it will end. I do admire that about Rare's portable teams of this era was they weren't afraid to just load it up with the stupidest in-jokes because they're like, nobody's paying attention to this. And it's fine. And they didn't anticipate that there would be a stupid-ass website that survives for 20 years on our own stubbornness.
Yeah, define survives, man.
Yeah.
It
We're
is-
thriving.
We're writhing. It's
It's time for the wrap up
That's
because
sort of,
that was a
that's
5
sort of
minute
calmly
conversation.
explaining to you
that
the
lasted
situation.
20.
Well, it's because you took such a long piss.
It came out as fast as it
Was
could.
it 28 seconds? Did you count?
I can't.
Or 3 or something.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and I really do feel like Phil Spencer would appreciate that we ended this on Conker's Pocket Tales discussion.
Yeah.
Still some mysteries left over from the Microsoft briefing. We will try to get to the bottom of this, but we also have a lot more content to discuss this at E3, including Platonic's new game, Yooka-Laylee, and the Impossible Lair, and we have to discuss it sometime, so I think we're doing a conversation on it tomorrow night.
We got to get into the laws defining how subtitles works because it's fascinating, and I think it's a meaningful choice.
Do you think there should be a colon in
Okay,
there?
save your best material.
Oh, I'm alluding to it.
So
It's good.
So we'll be back in 24 hours for Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair.
20 hours because it's gonna be a 4-hour podcast. So
Oh yeah, I anticipate this one will be even longer.
Speaking of things that are 24, we all are. That's a callback.
That's us.
Sorry.
Us in a nutshell, 24, am I right?
Actually, this is the last episode. Forget it. We're done.
Yeah. Well, it's been good.
Bye.
Bye. Wakanda.
Qué rico.